The whole ride kicks off the second he steps up to a massive ball that flickers green and yellow, and as soon as he places his bet, he throws in one wish, then reaches his hand out toward it. Leon taps the ball and a glowing inscription flashes. Sage. Then he wastes no time. He makes a wish to swap classes, but the moment it's time to change, the ball shuts him down, claiming the conditions are a total mess, so the class change never happens. Leon delivers the plot to the tavern, barges into a packed room, and spots the exact person he's been hunting, sitting right there among the crowded, occupied tables. Wolf Fang's sword team spots him. Then a holy knight steps in, along with a Just-a-Wolf, and they immediately grill him. So, how'd everything go? He messed everything up, and the wolf follows through on the deal. Then hits him with the news that he's fired, and the moment he hears it, shock slams him hard. He begs the leader to flip his decision and says, "Do anything, but don't do that." And the wolf remembers what Leon warned. If he can't switch into an average class, they'll fire him. The leader of the opposite side vows to do anything he's told, even if the pay gets cut. Suddenly, a girl storms in and acts like the hero should have known all along that he'll only end up getting in their way. A legendary celestial archer named Rebecca. Lloyd, this badass magician, backs her up, saying they can't push ahead while protecting Leon, so he's begging Lloyd to understand why. Finally, Chelsea swoops into the convo. Yeah, her class is ruthless, and he's left fuming, wondering why the hero can't finally see his own limits and just stop. Then Leon throws out his last shred of hope and asks, "What are we going to do without my help?" While lugging the bags and pushing through recovery, only to realize there aren't many people willing to take that on. He tells him his sword skills are actually solid, and the wolf snaps back that they've already handled it. He's already picked someone for those tasks, and then Rebecca turns to Noel and orders her to go say hello to the hero right before he heads out. Leon closes in, and she leans in too, saying it's better to say goodbye first. Then she steps forward and introduces herself as Noel, a priest, smiling as she tells him how happy she is to finally meet him. She tells him, "I know exactly who you are," then blasts him with the news that the hero crashed, and labels him a red magician, leaving him utterly stunned. After that, she leans in and asks if it's really true that he's hit his limit, not just in his class, but across every assignment. They hit him with that, straight up telling him he's level 20 as a carrier. Then out of nowhere, Noelle bursts into laughter. She spots it, this upgrade is just the limit getting pushed higher, and snaps that no adventurer should brag about something like that. But before the hero can even finish, he lets out a blood-curdling scream. "My storage skill is insanely useful." And then the wolf cuts in, saying, "Then use the bags." He keeps yelling that Leon and the Wolffang sword have no business here. Then Leon drops to the floor, burying his head like he's trying to vanish. He begged them to leave him behind, swearing he'd finally get faster at grabbing supplies and equipment, and even nail the delivery missions, despite the fact he's never done any of it before. He's screaming that Leon is already an adult, yet Leon keeps embarrassing himself right in front of them, and the wolf snaps in disgust. They can just order the supplies and pay the price without even bargaining. Then the wolf turns to handle the delivery point, only to realize the hero still hasn't been given the chance to do it. The wolf suddenly yanks Leon by the shoulder, forcing him to shrink back in terror, then spits that they dragged him around for 2 whole years, asking if that fact still isn't enough for him. A whisper cuts in and begs the hero to let them go already. Then Leon just stays sprawled on the floor, trembling, and Rebecca clocks it and teases, "Oh, are you crying? Come on, you big child." Chelsea blurts out that she'll go first because the whole situation feels painfully awkward. Right then, Noel starts laughing and teases, "Is the hero not an adult?" But Lloyd snaps at her to stop, saying it's disrespectful. Then Leon decides to step back, asks to be left alone, and makes it crystal clear. He's already on the candidates list, but he still has to meet every requirement. Then he erupts in a furious scream, fully expecting the madness to keep going until he ticks off every requirement, demanding to know how many jobs he thinks are out there, like he's daring everyone to admit the number is tiny. Stunned into silence, Leon tries to swallow his emotions, until the wolf tells him to chill, sit down, and then casually says they're leaving, and Leon's caught off guard. A waitress rolls up to their table with steaming food, shoving out a rushed apology for the delay, and the wolf cuts in, telling them they're leaving the city. Leon finally gets his treat. Then suddenly Leon lunges to stop him, begging him to come along, but nobody even listens anymore. Rebecca whips around to him, suddenly remembering how he looked after her from the very start, and she can't help but show him just how grateful she is. A tiny bit embarrassed, he's caught mid-squirming when Noel grins and jokes that if he doesn't dig in right now, the food's going to go cold. Then asks, "You get it?" Lloyd figures that if he keeps chasing adventure, he'll get to see them again, soon enough to laugh and trade stories when the moment finally hits. Right as the team whips around to head out, the wolf freezes in its tracks, then spins back and tells Leon to look out for himself. Tears brimmed in the hero's eyes, and he finally decided to thank them from the bottom of his heart for everything they'd given him. The hero wipes the last bites, leaves the plates totally empty, and sprints to the guild building, only to find a whole crowd packed inside. He closes in on the reception desk and the girl freezes, because today is different. Leon himself actually showed up here. The hero stumbles out a shaky agreement, scratching the back of his head like he can't believe it either. Suddenly, she beams like he's finally confessing his love, totally stunned at what's happening. Then he bursts into laughter and in his head realizes she's still cheerfully herself, calling her Miriam. Also clocks that even when he teases, she's still pure sweetness. Until out of nowhere, the girl's smile flickers and she looks genuinely surprised by his reaction. He had to tell him, "You're out, fired from the B-rank group, the Wolf Fang." And that was all because guild rules say if your base class hits level 20, they downgrade you straight to a temporary D rank. It basically warns that, for the temporary D ranks, the lower threshold drops, so you can slip ranks fast. Then it flat out tells the hero to stay sharp and hands him a payment slip for sharing that information. Still a little stunned, he blurts out another question, and right then, boom, 1,000 galbas materialize in front of him. He leaps up instantly and lets out a full-throated scream. Miriam leans in and tells Leon, "Got it. This is your reward for everything you've spilled so far." And when Leon questions the time interval again, Miriam's eyes widen because he has no clue what she's talking about. The girl decides she's finally going to tell him the truth about the Wolf Fang sword guys. And as she speaks, she remembers how Leon, during the blessing of the ball, got picked as a candidate for some mysterious, unknown class. He tosses it back and goes along with her. Then she blurts that, back then, he'd already been paid a whopping 10 million galva because the Sage is an unregistered mystery class nobody can verify in the guild, and the hero nearly blows a gasket at how insane that number is. Ever since then, every time he couldn't switch classes after hitting level 15 or 20 in any profession, the guild still dropped a cool 1 million galva in his lap, because the info he brings is stuff the guild doesn't have. Then it hits him, right from the start, the Wolf Fang sword was all about money, and that's exactly why they never let him join the guild. Then he basically boils it down. Once all his main professions hit level 20, they tossed him out, and that just makes everything feel even worse. He finally gets it. He stopped being their easy cash machine, and then the memory hits hard, the exact moment he started humiliating himself in front of them. The girl keeps staring at him, plotting her move, and then, at the last second, she turns toward him to pull his attention away. He's got total faith the hero's gonna pull through, and he's talking about how nobody else has ever managed to level up every single one of his core professions to a perfect 20. Later, Leon hears Noel's warning echo in his mind. Don't get proud just because you squeeze the basics to their limit, and rage starts boiling in him. If this is really that hilarious, why does she start to question it? Then, boom, out of nowhere the hero erupts in a scream, yelling, "So you think it's that much fun to make a fool out of me?" She rushes to apologize, insisting, "That's not what I meant," and Leon just can't shake it. He feels like everyone's always looking down on him. She starts begging for forgiveness, then tries to calm him down too, until she's suddenly cut off mid-sentence. He yanks out his weapon and shouts obscene trash, swinging at Miriam. But just as he charges in, someone snaps. A weapon's not a toy. And the next thing Leon knows, the blow hits and he crumples, losing consciousness. They moved him to a nearby room, right where the hero was already sprawled on the bed. Then, at some point, his eyes fluttered open as a voice called his name, and his mind slowly snapped back into focus. A shadowy man looms over him and barks, "Siflian, are you awake?" The hero snatches a pillow and yelps in pure terror, but at least he recognizes the guy. He's the guildmaster. He finally snaps back to reality, and the man tells him to stop making a scene in the guild. Because this time, he got away with it and nothing worse happened. Leon thinks he's just kidding when the next second, boom. He's hauled in, and right then the master snaps, asking if he's the red magician from the wolf group. He nods and basically calls himself a loser, saying he couldn't pull off changing classes, and now he's stuck as a powerless scout, still left outside the tower. Just as the hero is about to move, a pounding knock slams through the door, and the man swings it open. Miriam steps inside, then whips her head toward Leon. Everything's suddenly okay with him. He goes full, "I'm sorry," admits he didn't think about how his words hit, then steps up and dares to talk to him so casually like nothing happened. The hero realizes he has to apologize for losing control, and the girl immediately steps up. She tells him she doesn't judge him, begs him to trust her, and swears she's telling the truth. No lies at all. He hears the news that everything's fine. Then, out of nowhere, the man snaps, calling him a helpless young man. He heads for the tower with the hero at his side, then whips around and orders him to stay right on his heels. He tries to stop the guy, demanding to know what he's saying, but the man snaps back that he can't leave this kid alone. Too many dangers are out there, and he swears he'll be back before sunset. So there's no need to baby him, until a man slams him on the head, roars that it's an order from the guildmaster, and demands he follow silently like a damn red magician. Leon's in special research gear when he realizes the equipment they handed him is basically ancient junk. Once the man declares that being a red magician fits him perfectly, and right after that, the guys close in on the tower entrance, only to get stopped by a guard. They size him up for the prize, and the man blurts that he has to handle the hero's mess, until the guardian spots him, freezes, and shouts that he's the red magician from the sword of the wolf's fang. Then the master snaps him into focus. Figure out just how strong Leon really is, because from now on, you're on your own. Right after that, the guardian practically erupts with joy, convinced the hero finally ditched the wolf fangsword team and is surely feeling proud. The guys are dying to know just how far Leon can push himself, and the hero admits he's only a temporary D rank, while the guardian spells it out. He can hit 35, but his temporary D rank tops out at the 30th floor. Then the guy makes his move and starts climbing straight from the 21st floor. He hurries up to the 21st floor, then, right after he quizzes the hero, can he head straight up to the 30th floor by himself. But when the hero reacts, the guy clocks it instantly and assumes he's never really fought before, like his gut is screaming the answer. He clings to those forms like lifelines, ready to use them if things spiral out of control. Then the hero charges into the fight with his confidence fully leveled up. Leon storms in and gets met by attacks, until he cuts them down with his sword, way too easily. And then the man finally realizes this hero is better than he thought and points out that they've just hit the 25th floor. If Leon can fire off a bullet with different attributes, he shrugs it off, because he's got a level 20 black magician, and honestly, that part isn't shocking at all. Leon watches closely as Master praises his razor-sharp sword skills and lightning dexterity. Then Leon shoots back, saying fighting solo drains him, and the man immediately fires the real question. So why aren't you using support magic? The guy tells her the other fighters need her, and the conversation freezes in this super awkward silence. Then he finally realizes just how brutal Leon's mindset is. They come back, and the guardian snaps his attention to their progress. The man proudly says Leon hit the 30th floor with zero help, and the guard's jaw drops at how fast he pulled it off. Turns out the hero is a beast at magic, deadly in close combat, and he knows every single floor in this tower. So the guardian figures he must have been held down by a pack of wolves and could blow up in fame, but Leon cuts in and reminds him. He's a red magician. He vouches that he's solid, then lets it slip that he's getting hit with a bad class. The guardian starts pulling the hero close, insisting, no, proving, that he's the missing piece and the key to the whole team. He tells Leon that's what most adventurers in this city think about him, and Leon's jaw drops at the sheer shock of it. The hero admits he hardly ever sets foot in the guild, and the guardian's shocked speechless. Then the hero reveals the crew warned him not to go, and the guard snaps that those guys sound awful. And right then, the hero realizes he picked this himself, because it's what he truly wanted, and the moment it clicks, he calls himself a fool. The man tells him, "You've gotten stronger," then shows him there's more to life than pain. He thanks the guard with real gratitude. He pushes forward and declares this is the start of something brand new for Leon, then immediately decides to take him out for dinner. They stroll through the city streets, duck into one spot, and pick a place to eat and drink right then and there. They shove the last bites down, and the man tells the hero, "Chill, go to the Stairway to Paradise massage parlor, plant your first step, and start your life as a brand new adventurer." They drag him inside, shove him into a bathrobe, and tell him to wait in some back room. Then he clocks the massage parlor as downright weird, like the air itself is wrong. The room's door swings open, and there she is, stepping out from behind it with a quick apology for keeping you waiting. She introduces herself as Amiria, the hero's partner for the evening. Right beside him, she blurts out that she's hoping he'll like it. Then panic detonates in the hero's head as he frantically demands, "Wait, is this a massage parlor or not?" She answers, "Yeah, exactly," and tells him her job is to loosen up stiff bodies. Then she slides her hand under his robe. Amelia leans in like, "Okay, say the name." And the hero blinks, then introduces himself as Leon. She instantly thinks, that's super cute, and with his face blazing red, she makes a bold choice. She'll save the most important part for last, to give him a moment to breathe, just before their lips collide in a kiss. Miria assumes it's no ordinary salon, and the girl nods like, yeah, totally. Then Miria goes, wait, is this Leon's first time in a place like this? Before anything else, her very first kiss hits her like a shock, so she clocks it. The hero didn't want to kiss her at all. He blurts out a quick denial, then Emilia leans in and demands he show her everything else. So he gives in, and she just starts kissing him again. She rips off her robe and urges the hero to take her breasts in his hands. He does, and then she purrs that he can touch her as much as he wants, until Emilia suddenly grabs his hand and yanks him down to where she wants him most, between her legs. The hero clocks exactly what has to happen, and then, bam, he realizes the girl is warm, soft, and standing right there. She commits the moment it's offered, swallows it all without hesitation, and then starts moving right away. After a little while, Emilia leans in and asks if Leon is about to hit the peak of pleasure. He breaks loose, promising him it'll all be okay, until the girl spots that he's let out way too much, and the hero instantly starts panicking and apologizing. She's actually satisfied, then she sweeps in like, let's enjoy the night, and they start to doze off, until a message suddenly flashes in front of Leon. Every condition is met, and the sage's time is officially starting now. He gets the message, conditions are met, and the sage's time has officially begun. But he's totally clueless what sage even means while the girl is already slipping into sleep on his chest. After Leon finally class changes into a sage, he's hit with a whole wave of upgrades, stronger body, more mana, sharper intelligence, and a ton of other power-ups. Just as that surge hits, the hero starts checking his own body. Then bam, Emilia jolts awake and clocks that he's ready for intimacy again. Then she's like, let's do it again. And the girl invites Leon to go have some fun. Leon nods and agrees. After another round, the hero finally clocks that Emilia looks drained. So he taps his ability to wipe away her fatigue, rides that great feeling hard, and refuses to quit. Right when the cure restores her health, the girl jolts with shock. Her strength is back full force, and she starts urging Leon to push harder. He's betting the hero is about to hit his peak, then blurts out, so how does it feel? And when the hero says it's wonderful, he pushes the girl to chase that same pure euphoria. Emilia's senses get cranked to the max, and the moment she feels it, she starts screaming and snaps completely. Then they both tumble straight into the peak of pleasure. She screams, this can't be happening, then realizes something wild is coursing through her, strange, brand new sensations she can't explain. She yells at Leon to stop, calls the whole moment insane, and Emilia admits her head is spinning out of control from that obscene scene and his mischievous hands. She suddenly realizes the hero's arm has swollen for some reason. Then it buckles across his lower back like an electric shock just ripped through him. They're done and they just stay there on the bed. Then the girl spots that Leon is still leaking a ton of liquid and demands, what's going on? Then, just like that, her exhaustion melted away and her senses snapped sharper and brighter. And when the hero tells her it's all magic, surprise hits her like lightning. She'd heard rumors about magic being used for intimacy, but she still believed combat magic only belonged inside the tower. He suddenly realizes that once you step out of the tower, the abilities built from learned combat skills get crushed hard, and then it clicks. Black and white magic won't work outside the tower either. He stares at his hand and finally realizes what the sage can really do, like it's all about him. And just as it clicks, a soft girl's sigh yanks his attention away. She isn't qualified. She's so drained she can barely stand, even though her job is to entertain clients, until Leon snaps, screams, and pushes her to believe she's more than that. The best intimacy of his life, because from where he stands, it's way better if they're both feeling good right now. Emilia bursts into laughter, clocking what the hero's saying. Like seriously, he was a virgin until recently, and the words smack him right in the face as he turns beet red, then she hits him with, but I'd love to praise you. He addresses her respectfully, but Emilia shuts it down and demands he use her first name. Then she leans in and straight up tells him she wants more intimacy with him. He wants the same thing, and before he can even think, his lips crash into the girl's in a blazing kiss. Then Emilia leans in and asks if he can still use magic, and Leon shoots back that he absolutely can. The sage's age is done, but it's about to spring back to life because those guys' night isn't over yet, even though the sun has already climbed up. Right before he's about to leave the institution, Emilia calls him out and asks if he's really heading for the tower. He nods, confirms her hunch, and tells her his stamina is back full force after getting some rest. She begs him to come back and swears she'll wait, and he fires back with a promise. Next time, he'll treat her right. The hero strides up to the guild building, and as he steps inside, the guardian's words hit him. Tomorrow, he'll be famous, and he can't help but wonder why those words were so certain. Then he pushes through the doors. He spots a crowd and a furious girl, freaking out because the wolf fang sword isn't here. Leon's totally lost, so he just stands there, staring and listening like, what's going on? Another girl cuts in and says there's only one member from the Sword of the Wolf's Fang. Then her teammate starts firing questions about where he is, and she points straight to the hero, standing right at the door. She fixes him with a serious stare, closes the distance, and asks Leon if he's the same guy from that group her colleague just mentioned. The hero says, "I used to be one of you," and right away another girl blurts that he got kicked out. Then she strides up to him and calls him a red magician, and you can practically feel the tension spike in him. A fuss suddenly remembers she's heard all about that useless magician in the Sword of the Wolf's Fang, and right after those words hit, the crowd's eyes snap to the hero like nothing will ever look the same again. Her colleague erupts in laughter, remembers Leon was just a temporary guild member until yesterday, and then the other girl turns around and declares him completely useless. He decides to invite her to join the Myriad Blooming Flowers team, but she shuts it down fast because it's a C-rank squad, and she insists the team she picks must be top tier in rank. She insists her crew is the top rank among everyone here. Then the other cuts in, saying the Sword of Wolf Fangs is rank B, and the girl refuses to back down. Finally, they both turn and leave. The hero can't stop asking, what was all that for? And when he finally reaches the reception, Miriam is waiting, grinning as she decides it was obvious Leon had a blast last night. He spots the awkward situation, clocks that the guildmaster may have slipped and said something she shouldn't have, and then he decides to cut straight to it, asking who the girl was that caused all this noise. Then it hits him, it's Lydia, and suddenly he remembers. She's a knight princess, and he's heard the rumors about her. Lydia just got the word. Hit level 30, and she can join the Wolffang sword, so after nailing it on yesterday's expedition, she's sure she'll make it happen again today. Leon can't stop dreaming about an adventure, and he makes it official. He says he wants to hit the exploration first, then use the blessing room before going. He suddenly recalls he's already been there, and doubt gnaws at him. Then the hero leans in and says, "Trust me, today can be completely different from yesterday." But then it hits him. Maybe he should ditch the arrogance, even if it was his first time. And when he looks at the girl, he figures she's been thinking the same thing too. He meets the guildmaster, and it clicks for him. This so-called hero isn't just fighting, he's been getting intimate until morning. Then Leon snaps, "Don't tell Miriam too much," because he remembers how those piercing eyes can cut straight through you. The man throws out an apology and asks about the hero's health. But then he clocks how real Leon looks, and Leon figures it's all because of Emiria. So the man tells him to stop doubting himself and have more confidence. They rush to the spot where class changes happen, and the hero gets the message. Class change is blocked because the conditions aren't met. They realize it, just being nearby wasn't enough. It's basically him tipping the headquarters off just to cash in on 100,000 hava. Because this unknown class means the more details he brings, the more they pay, and Leon is absolutely stunned. The hero starts to panic, thinking Amiria might blab his problem to everyone. But the man steps in, shuts it down, and tells him she never, ever spills info about her clients. It says the sage's time should stay locked away from everyone, because if they don't, he'll never even realize what he's truly stepping into. He gets sidetracked by a man who demands the hero come back after he does it again. And when the hero says he doesn't have a partner, the man snaps back that Miriam wouldn't approve, then presses him to confirm if he'll go investigate. He does it and warns him to be extra careful because the wolf fang sword that used to stomp around the upper floors isn't here anymore. The hero grins back and says, "So you mean it's not like it's been just one day without them, right?" He admits he's a bit uneasy about how much they were trusted with cleanup, warns Leon to remember that, and then he writes it all down. The hero strides up to the reception desk, but when Miriam asks what he wants from this expedition, he freezes and won't say a word, until she presses him about what happened to him, and that question sends a jolt of fear through him. He has to lay out the forms and spill his whole plan ahead of time, but all he can think about is Miriam, because the guildmaster already told her some seriously weird stuff. He praises her as pretty, then starts appraising her figure, right as she blurts out crucial info, only to realize he's not even listening. Leon finally snaps back that he wants to push from the 31st floor straight up to the 35th. Princess Knight and the whole squad of the myriad blooming flowers just kicked off their expedition from the 31st floor, and he's locked in on pure speed. He finishes the registration, and then the hero finally clicks. Oh, that's who she was. Right after that, he bolts out, and they all shout for him to have a safe journey. He rockets through the tower with a fast move and slams straight onto the 31st floor. Then goblins swarm in and start attacking him the second he arrives. He unleashes the lightning bullet skill, but it only drops a single monster. Then the goblins snap and swarm him with even more fury. He dashes forward, yanks out his weapon, and rockets through the monsters at breakneck speed, slicing each one cleanly in half. He realizes his new abilities, and for a second he swears it's all just in his head. Then the hero tells it. When he entered the tower today with the guildmaster, power hit him like nothing he'd ever felt before. Once he switched to Sage, he unlocked a huge stash of skills, and even after the Sage time ran out, they didn't vanish. Leon stares at his own hand, kicks on his sense enhancement, then freezes where he stands, lost in thought about something big. There's not a single person or magical creature on this floor, and it makes his skin crawl. Then he unbuttons his fly, thinking they're doing this to test whether the Sage's power is really activated. When he finally got intimate with Emilia yesterday, the Sage's time kicked into motion, so he's now convinced he has to finish with ejaculation to trigger it. So he kept feeding his self-satisfaction, convinced he'd boost his pleasure just by cranking up those feelings. Then when he finally stops, nothing happens, even though Leon was sure it would. So he tells himself he just has to dive into intimacy with anyone, and then he clocks it. If he does it again with Emilia, he'll unlock a whole lot. He had no choice. He pushed onward with his expedition because he swore he'd bring the money next time and treat her properly. And then he smashed through the 32nd, 33rd, and 34th floors. The hero finally crashes onto the 35th floor, dives back into the fight, and storms out victorious. Then, in the corner, he snatches some medicine and patches himself up. By the time he finally reaches the 35th floor, exhaustion wrecks him, so he decides to turn back. Then, out of nowhere, screams rip through the air and stop him cold. Then boom, girls spill around the corner, and one of them has a partner riding on her back, looking way too familiar to Leon. He shoots them a quick, "Are you all right?" But the girl stares back, shocked to see him here. The hero's a red magician, and the second they see him, they start begging, "Please, heal us." And even as he resists at first, he finally agrees, unleashing his healing magic to patch up the injured girl and help her recover. A girl he knows is totally stunned by this and blurts, "Wait, how do you even know how to use those two skills?" The victim's already starting to heal, so the hero steps in and reveals his white magician is level 20, and you can practically see the girl's jaw drop from shock. Leon mends everyone else, and the other guys stare in pure disbelief at how powerful that hit was. The girl demands, "Is it only healing?" And the hero grins back, saying he used recovery too, even with barely any mana. The girls are thrilled by Leon's power. Then they start to lose the plot, because how is a red magician this strong? So his main skills hit level 20, meaning he can flex harder than the magicians here, and the girl he knows is absolutely stunned. Just as they're trying to focus, another girl pipes up so softly it almost hurts, asking to share water, even though she knows she shouldn't. The hero doesn't hesitate, agrees right away, and yanks a whole barrel of water from his inventory. Still stunned, she blurts out whether Leon's thinking about himself. But Leon just grins and tells her he's got 10 more barrels of water, so she can breathe easy. He screams, and then the hero cuts in, yelling that his vault is level 22, so it can handle everything. The girl goes dead quiet, then suddenly grabs Leon by the shoulders and begs him to help, only for Leon to snap back that this is all he can do for them right now. The princess actually stayed right where they'd fled from, so she could help them, and the hero's thrown for a loop, because he'd figured they were only exploring from the 30th to the 39th floor, so he can't make sense of why the C-rank team is battling here. After they finally reached the 37th floor and pushed a bit farther, a Lord-class monster crashed the scene, and Leon instantly screamed, because he knows those things only show up on the 50th floor of this tower. The guildmaster's words hit hard. The Wolfang sword, who always patrolled the upper floors, is gone, so he snaps and demands to know what monster just showed up there. It's saying this is the vanguard of the goblin winners, and the whole pack is marched by the goblin general himself. He wonders if the Goblin Lord really showed up somewhere on those 3,039 floors, then immediately shuts it down, saying there's no way a C-rank team, blooming like a field of flowers, can take on a Lord-class monster. They somehow crushed the first pack on the 37th floor. Then she finally thought she was safe, only to get blindsided by Lord-class monsters lurking in the 39th floor. She asked the allies if they were okay, and at first they assured her everything was fine. Then they rushed to tell her their weapons had shattered and only a sliver of magic remained. Right then, another girl burst up to them and warned, "The enemies are still closing in. These monsters might be Lord-class." Then the girl froze at what she was seeing, because they were still stuck on the 37th floor, but when reality hit, she had no choice. She sprinted. And right then, she told the princess, "I've got you, move first." Princess refused at once, because she knew she couldn't stop the entire pack. And once she got dragged out, her friends would get targeted too, so she turned to the girl and told her everything, calling her Rita. She said that with her halberd, she could smash the whole front and stop enemies over a wider area. So she asked to cover the others, and Rita nodded, agreed, then took off. They sprinted downstairs as the princess finally dove into the fight on the 37th floor, and the guys said, "Forget the safe zone, run to the lower floors." Rita watches the princess keep fighting through sheer struggle and snaps, "What are you doing next?" The girl swears she'll join them the moment she wipes out these monsters, and begs Rita to call for backup just in case. She realizes she can't carry everything solo, so she steps in to help. Then she spots the truth. Her allies can't reach the 31st floor without her. Then the princess snaps her head around and says they can't promise they won't run into another crowd. Rita just freezes on the spot for a heartbeat. That she's a lord's daughter, people in the city are supposed to back each other. But Rita snaps back that they're adventurers, not just locals, and the princess fires right back. Adventurers aren't so different from the residents after all. Rita swore she'd get help, then bolted out the door, begging her ally to hold on and stay alive. She declares the princess is still locked in a one-on-one brawl with the demon lord, and Rita snaps that they'll only step in to help her there, no matter how pathetic it sounds. Then admits they're running on empty, with both supplies and magic completely gone. She barrels into Leon and begs him all over again to save the princess. Then Rita adds, "We can even shield you from attacks if you need it." Leon refuses to tag along, tells them he'll handle it solo, and that hits Rita like a punch to the chest. Then the hero swings around to another girl and asks, straight up, if she'll be able to make it down to the 32nd floor once she's fully recovered. She shrugs it off, because she's a C-rank adventurer and that's not the issue. Leon nods, accepts her answer, and instantly asks for permission to hand her a healing potion. He's gonna gulp a potion, head straight to the guild, and then ask her to pack even more medicine on the way. She snatches one last medicine, turns to head out for reinforcements, and tells him she's handing Princess Lydia to his care. Then the hero snaps, begs her to wait, and slams in a powerful shove that fires her up and boosts her spirits. If she dashes to another floor, the support magic will get ripped away. But he's praying it'll still help her at least right here, and when it seems to work, she turns, thanks him, then bolts into a run. The hero steels himself and pushes forward. Then Rita steps in, staring him down, asking if he truly doesn't need help and offering him a well-earned rest. Rita assures him everything's fine, swears she'll bring the princess back, and then, right when he expects relief, Rita hands it all over to him and walks away. He strides up to the 36th floor and blasts himself with a whole stack of boosts, physical impulse and boosted sensitivity included. It's basically saying the princess can handle this trial. Then it hits the truth. Another lord might barge in at any moment. Halfway there, trouble shows up, but the hero shoots it down fast. Then suddenly it clicks. He's following the right path and the end is right around the corner. He pops the healing potion and then realizes there's one last thing left. Good news, it's all he needs to buy a second for the princess to escape. Then the hero peeks around the corner. A girl pops up right in front of him, swinging her weapon side to side like a storm, and as she lunges at the goblin, he snaps back, launching a perfect dodge and slipping the hit. He spots the lord gripping a sword and clocks how exhausted the princess looks, bad news written all over it. Then, out of nowhere, she snaps and yells at the little nimble monster. A voice rips from behind her. Then the hero introduces himself as a darank adventurer, and Leontie bares her teeth, breath turning grim as she launches into the fight with the goblin. The monster freezes in stunned silence, and then the hero turns to the princess and brags that he showed up to rescue her at the request of a sea of blooming flowers. The girl's still processing it. Then the hero shoves a healing potion into her hands and dares her to drink it, and the moment she's healed, she charges straight into battle with a goblin. The monster jukes the attack at the last second, and the hero's gut drops. This isn't some fake thug, it's a real lord, because every strike comes down sharp, heavy, and brutal. He's got it figured out. This is normal, just lock in and keep the goblin's strikes off him. Then he sucks in that sullen breath again and throws himself into the attack. Leon snaps in a kick and goes for the final hit. Then the goblin slips aside at the last second, forcing the hero to realize this brainy little monster actually thinks. Suddenly, the girl tells him, "I'm fine now," and steps forward. Then she spots Leon's great work, and he thanks her for the praise before blasting her with a huge feeling boost and a physical one, too. The goblin scrambles to get battle ready. Then the girl suddenly lifts her weapon. The princess rushes to thank the hero, tells him to just watch, and then orders the goblin to brace for his final fight. He rushes into the fight and unleashes a storm of strikes so relentless the monster can't dodge or recover, until one hit slams him back, and that's when the girl decides it's finally over. He swings for the killing blow, but the goblin dodges it again. Then the princess shrieks that the monster will never learn to quit, and right on cue he lets out a pissed-off, dissatisfied growl. Right now, the princess yanks her weapon free and drives it straight through the enemy, then slams him down onto the ground, leaving the hero staring like, she nailed it. Then she lands another savage hit, and when it's over, she tells him the hero did an amazing job too. The girl spots that he never let his guard down and was ready to unleash magic, so she thanks him for it. She slips into Lydia, the C-rank adventurer, and locks her gaze on Leon until it hits her. Leon was one of those wolf fangs. She shifts into a little embarrassment, then reminds him, loudly, that he's a red magician. The next second, her expression flips, and she panics as she rushes to apologize for all the awful things she said about him. Lydia doesn't apologize a beat. Then, boom, a weird howl slices through the hallway, and Lydia snaps to it. It's a dog's cry, or at least she's sure it's a kobold. He snatches her hand and shouts for her to flee this place. But she tries to get a word in, only for him to silence her and demand she hurry. Then the princess pushes on anyway, insisting they can still take down even a Lord-class kobold. When Zia snaps around, she spots something horrifying. So the hero instantly knows exactly what kind of monster it is, even without laying eyes on it. Even though this boss should be nowhere near the upper floors, he's terrified, and the guys are thrown into a rare nightmare. A monster that's part human, part wolf. She's sprinting for her life from that terrifying monster, and then, bam, she realizes they missed a turn, grabs her throat, and starts screaming for the hero to stop. She shouts that this way is wrong, but the hero snaps back, "Trust me." He knows this tower's corner better than any other place, and he knows exactly where they need to go, until the monster's roar starts creeping closer, and his stomach drops because he realizes they're about to get caught. The hero realizes the girl's hand has slipped away and spots it. She's chosen to hold that monster back. She slams her weapon into the werewolf's attack, then starts screaming for him to run, and right then, he exhales with sullen breath. Lydia hesitates for a heartbeat, but then her mind snaps into confusion, because Leon's move isn't random at all. The hero is baiting the enemy, drawing their attention straight to him. She jerks back, blurts that she can't understand a thing, and demands why Leon isn't running. Then he snaps back that he'll move only with her, signals her to follow him, and bolts the other way. He marches down the aisle to the very end, whips right, slips around the corner, and swings open the right door like he's been there 100 times. And the girl is stunned because he already has a plan. She calls him out and asks what he's thinking, and the hero just smiles and says yes. After they've come this far, she finally chooses to trust him. Then Leon yanks out a barrel of water, flashes a signal, and hurls it straight at the monster. The barrel smashes into the enemy and drenches him with water. Then the hero kicks in sullen breathing, only for the monster to buckle and roll around for a moment while the guys break into a full sprint. After those seconds, he snaps back to himself and finally clocks where Lydia and Leon are headed. Then the guys slam into the door, and the hero swings it open so she can step in. Leon chuffs a grim breath after them. It stuns the enemy just long enough. Then when they charge, he slips behind a shut door. He lets out a steady breath, answers the girl's question about safety, then casually reveals the twist. On every floor, there's a safe zone where monsters can't cross the line. He just assumes the monster will hunt them the second it spots them, and the hero clocks that she's reading the danger perfectly. Then she talks to her casually, like they're already close. She shrugs off the name like it's nothing. This place is full of adventurers. Then she leans in and admits that once she steps into the tower, she slips into a different identity, and straight up tells the hero he'd better treat her like a senior, because she's the one in charge. The hero agrees to call her that way, but the moment she gets a polite title instead of the usual mix-up, she snaps back that even that isn't okay. He suggests she can just call her by her first name, and she nods along. Then she turns the tables and demands to know why he ditched the stairs to the lower floor and chose to hide here. Then the hero warns her that team members might be lurking on the lower floor, and the girl finally gets it. He never wanted anyone caught in danger, and now she realizes the terrifying truth. They had no other choice. He blurts out that he hates dragging her into all this, but Lydia snaps back that none of this is on him. Then she decides she needs to rest, and figures the hero is just running on pure exhaustion. He throws a cloth on the floor, motions for her to sit, and she thanks him with a soft smile. Then she plops down and tells Leon to sit too. He obeys, cheeks burning with a little embarrassment. The girl starts to stretch, and the hero's stare hits her. Then he whips his gaze away like it burned, convinced Lydia must be thirsty. He yanks out a barrel of water, and the girl gasps, because she clearly saw him toss one barrel earlier. Then he smirks and says his inventory's packed with slots, pulling out proof. He still has 8 more barrels left, and Lydia can't help but stare in awe. He saved her, yeah, but the hero's cheeks go pink as he tells her she's blowing it out of proportion. Then he shoves a ladle into her hands and dares her to use it, and she finally lifts it to drink. Leon stays frozen watching her, and then he clocks the water trickling down her lips, pure panic creeping into his face. Then she suddenly blurts that she feels alive again. She rushes up to the hero, blurts out an apology, then figures he might be thirsty and presses a ladle into his hands. After a while, the excitement fizzles and Lydia finally snaps. So, what are we doing now? The hero fires back. We wait for reinforcements. That's the only smart way out of here alive. She's caught off guard because she knows those teammates can't even budge. They weren't exactly at their best earlier, so she braces herself for a wait that feels like it'll take forever. So he patches up the scout, just so she can scream for reinforcements, and he bets that even the worst-case scenario, help will crash in before tomorrow morning. Then he shrugs and adds the kicker. They're not safe either, because they've got problems of their own. It all hinges on how long that werewolf keeps pacing for them. If he grows bored and bolts, he'll drop to the lower floor to hunt fresh prey. They finally realize, if the team keeps hanging back there, it's going to end in disaster, so the hero adds one more gut punch. Even if reinforcements show up right on schedule, and even if that monster is still on this same floor, trouble won't magically disappear. They realize the wolf fang sword is nowhere to be found, and then it hits them. No matter how the guild's spare adventurers rush in, they still won't be able to handle the werewolf. If his old team were still here, salvation wouldn't be out of reach. Then he starts warning them about what's going to happen the moment the defense forces finally arrive. She blurts that her brother won't make it anytime soon. There's too much danger, and it's not for the defense forces to handle. He figures, yeah, of course this was coming. Those troops are meant to stop monsters from busting out of the Banshee. He clicks with it instantly. Those tower defenses only kick in when adventurers try to jump to the next floor, and he realizes the rule everyone follows. You've got to go through the guild first. A tense, awkward silence snaps through the room, and the girl hides her face in her hand, convinced there's truly no escape, until the hero suddenly drops the one way out she never saw coming. She blurts the question right away, then Leon slams the truth home. That choice will crush you. Still, she won't fight back because she refuses to live by sacrificing other victims. He decides to ask what Lydia thinks about helping with magic, before he even touches tactics or anything else tied to it. He's bragging about low-level magic, then straight up tells her he can't touch intermediate or higher spells, because he's a red magician. It's so strong it feels like medium-tier magic. And he even asks how he can pull off sense enhancement when, in theory, only a red magician should be able to access it. Leon lets Lydia know the reason his low-level jobs have finally hit level 20. It all traces back to the moment his red magician spot climbed to level 15. But he still couldn't land a job at that tier, so it just kept stacking up. Turns out that rumor was dead ON, and then the hero reveals something wild. After he pushed the level to 20, a sage showed up in his changes list. The girl stares in shock because she's never heard of anything like that. So Leon's still got that red magician vibe. He claims he pulled off a class change on the fly, even though it was only temporary, and he did it without a single blessing ball. It took him half a day to snap back to his original form, and Lydia swears she hasn't heard a word about it. She's even thinking about running a class shift without a blessing ball. And when he finally realized he couldn't just swap classes with a simple ball, the brief sage transformation still hit like a cheat code, bursting him with a whole stash of brand new skills. Leon's like, yeah, her skills got sharper, and he backs her up. Then he adds, when I switched my class to sage, I saw the magic power rising too. He figures he can crank it up to the point where a werewolf finally drops. And the moment he says that, Lydia freezes in shock, picturing just how terrifyingly strong the hero is. Caught off guard, the hero snaps that one condition has to be met to change his class. No blessing ball needed. So Lydia decides she's going to dig into what that condition is. Then the hero's totally baffled, and he decides the safest move is to wait for the defense troops to show up. Says more victims are coming, and Leon fires back that switching the class might not be the escape he hopes for. Then he spirals, realizing he shouldn't have brought it up at all, because now he can't even hint at intimacy anymore. He pushes this option hard, swearing it'll help, and that she's willing to try. While the hero fights her every step, warning she'll be crushed by the pain, and reminding her of what those memories will bring. She decides she'll stay patient as long as she can shield the city's people. And then the hero warns that adventurers might not make it. Death could be waiting. So nothing goes his way, and Lydia vows to dig into what that condition really is. He decides to tell her anyway and blurts that the price to switch his class is intimacy. Then he just waits, hanging on her reaction. Leon's request left her panicking. He demanded she make love to him, and now she can't go along with it anymore. He snaps back to that talk about turning the sage's power on. Then the girl nodded and agreed, but now she's gone silent. Leon finally takes a deep breath. Then the girl hurls a weapon straight at him. He realizes he doesn't even want to live anymore, so he crawls away, desperate to disappear. The girl walks in and spots her, just sitting in the corner doing nothing. Then the hero suddenly clocks it. She's whispering to herself under her breath, and after a few stolen words, he finally understands. She's begging for something. Lydia finally clicks. If that hero hadn't raced in to save her, she wouldn't be alive right now. So she decides he's her savior and starts figuring out how to thank him. She has no other choice. Still, she's mortified because the very first time she's going to be with a man she barely knows. The hero starts thinking it's safer to stay put and wait for the girl's answer, telling himself he can endure the quiet while she cools off. Then, out of nowhere, a blood-curdling scream rips through the air and he whips around. She tells the hero to do it anyway. At first, he's totally lost. Then she explains her meaning about intimacy, and he blurts out, "Are you sure for real?" She pushes him to hurry because she's already made up her mind. Leon nods and asks straight up if she even knows how. Then she admits, with a shaky honesty, that she's never done anything like it before. Or maybe this time is her very first, and the hero's face turns beet red as he whips his head away, mortified. Then the girl bravely asks what she's supposed to do. Leon whips around and spots her folded underwear sitting on the fabric. Lydia freezes, yanks her skirt up to cover herself, and assumes the hero is about to strip her bare. He tosses her onto the bed and gives the hero the opening. Leon looms over her, just staring, and then he's shocked when she actually does nothing but lie there. And the girl looks up and asks what he wants her to do. She realizes that intimacy is supposed to lead to kids, and she can't even wrap her head around how they'll manage it without love, until it hits her. They have to do it to kickstart the sage. She tells him she won't force Leon, and he fires back that he's going to do it. Then he scoots in beside her, leans close, and orders her to spread her legs, making her blush with pure embarrassment, but he gets the job done. The hero strides up to her and unzips his pants. Then he goes to move in when Lydia snaps, "Hurry up!" And suddenly he freezes while the girl begs him to pick up the pace. He finally gets what she means, but he still can't step inside. She panics, thinking she blurted out the wrong thing, and Leon tells her the truth. She won't let him in until she's soaked. So picture this. Then the hero steps in and offers to help her, but she shoots back that she wants to do it herself first, and then she'll hand the reins to him. She steps back, and the girl starts to take matters into her own hands, then instantly panics when her moans make everything 10 times more awkward, yanking her mouth shut with her hand. As her moans climb higher and higher, she finally hits the moment she's chasing, then blurts out that she's finished. He backs off once more, then slams a hand over her face, but the hero surges right back in, leaning close as he starts to insert. With the door finally open for him, the tension melts, and his feelings turn sweet. Then, out of nowhere, the girl starts moaning. Leon is completely lost. Then Lydia drops the bomb that it's her first time, and the hero blurts out, "Got it," apologizing on the spot, but the worry hits him instantly. What if she gets hurt? Lydia's expression flickers, and she tells him they've got to do this now. So he steels himself, stops talking for a second, and pushes forward with even more determination. He moves in close and tells her he's entered her, then he shoots, "Are you okay?" And she answers that she's fine, but her voice cracks with awkwardness. It pushes him to hurry, and the pressure embarrasses him even more, because suddenly he can't stop thinking that he's caught up in intimacy with the Princess Knight, the Lord's stunning daughter. Can he really hit the peak of pleasure? Then the hero finally starts moving, and soon the girl blurts out, "Are you done yet?" Right then, he blurts out that he's asking whether Lydia cast a pregnancy spell on herself, and she admits it, because it could be dangerous. He's ready to keep going, but the girl springs up and tells him to slow down. Then the hero asks what happened, and Lydia starts panicking that he'll end up inside her, leaving him totally baffled. So you don't have to end it inside. Then he's like, wait, what? And he finally starts trying to figure out what the girl means before deciding to go inside anyway. Then he tells her that if they fail, they'll just run it back again, and that promise scares her to death. She snaps at him to stop letting it all mess with his head and begs the hero to get straight down to business. The hero asks how she's doing, and she snaps back that she's fine, because deep down she's finally ready to do it. So Leon takes her words and moves on. She wriggles under the bedspread and lets out a shaky moan, then clamps a hand over herself as the hero keeps his eyes locked on her face and every move. He snaps his grip back around her waist, whips her around, and yells that he's about to hit his peak. Then the tension shatters, they both melt into relief, and she starts saying it's over. He catches her breaking down into tears, and her determination blazing through it, then decides this won't all be for nothing. Right after that, a message pops up in front of him. Every single condition is met. With the sage's power blazing to life, it's finally time to rip into that monster and strike back. The hero splashes the cleansing over the girl, and boom, her whole body shifts. She snaps her face into a new expression, rockets upright, and clutches her stomach like something's finally gone. Lydia stares in shock as she realizes the stuff has vanished from her body. He gets the moment out of her body at last. Then the hero fires off healing and recovery skills. Lydia's pain eases fast, and she shudders like relief just punched through her skin. The hero gets met with her stunned, clueless stare. Then the girl erupts in a scream, demanding to know if he can actually cast spells in a safe zone. He tells her they've unleashed the sage's true power, and Lydia freezes in shock. Then her respect for the hero shoots through the roof, making his eyes burn even brighter with confidence. He thrust his arms out in front and hit Lydia with physical enhancement and sensitivity enhancement, and suddenly her strength skyrocketed. She could feel it, and she was absolutely blown away by how insanely cool it was. B snatches her weapon and blurts that her body feels weightless and packed with power. So when she finally meets the monster, she's dead sure she'll win. She dreams she'll never be scared of him again, and then swears she'll end him with a couple of brutal blows, until she snaps to attention when the hero suddenly looks sick, clutching his head in pain. She rushes right up, trembling, and demands to know what's happening to him. He remembers she forgot her underwear and left it sprawled on the floor, and then the hero jabs at him, declaring the cleansing stage is finished, while the girl erupts in a scream of pure embarrassment and bolts straight for her underwear. He's gone quiet and starts to suspect the hero clocked everything. First he shies away in embarrassment, then he finally blurts out exactly what he saw, and the girl immediately snatches her weapon and starts hurling insults. He's terrified, but he still admits he's guilty. Then Lydia snaps into action, launches a counterattack, and marches for the exit of the safe zone, flashing a smile straight at the hero. Nvidia barges in, gears up to take down the monster, and then heads back, right when the hero snaps that the safe zone won't last once he shuts the door, except she bolts straight out into the corridor. If everything's about to be okay, and Lydia says yes, then the hero snaps the door shut, and the second it clicks, he realizes the whole atmosphere has somehow shifted. It's all because of the werewolf. Then, out of nowhere, it drops into the corridor at the far end, staring right at him. And the second the monster sees the person who ruined him, its fury ignites and keeps climbing. A girl suddenly steps in front of the hero, daring him to go to battle, and you can see the hunger to win blaze in her eyes. Then she rockets forward, swings hard, and crashes into the enemy. Stunned that the girl just throws herself straight into a brutal direct hit, I can't help but think that's exactly what she's going for, because her power only keeps growing, stronger than he ever imagined. The girl hammers the werewolf in brutal close quarters, landing blow after blow, and when they finally snap apart, the hero spots it. His back is wide open. He swings his weapon and crashes into the enemy, only for them to throw up a hand and block the hit, like it's nothing, and the hero realizes. Of course, the toughest rare monster would fight back like that. The werewolf lunges toward Leon, drives a blade straight into him to shove him back, but Leon snaps his weapon up in time and blocks the hit. Then the beast hammers his sword over and over, trying to shatter it. After becoming a sage, he finally learned how to shrug off attacks like those, but now he's still hunting one question. Can his magic actually hit back and take down a werewolf? The monster finally snatches the hero, but right then the girl slams into him, yanking his focus right onto herself. The hero clocks the opening, grits his teeth, and launches a spell to seal the win. She sinks her horns in, knowing she'll shove the monster right where it needs to go, and she does it instantly. Then she whips her weapon around and drives it into the werewolf, and right after that, its body vanishes into thin air. He's laughing with pure satisfaction, then he finally realizes they made it. Right then, the hero gets a message saying his level has been raised. He discovers he got a magical blade, unlocks magic power detection. His sage level spikes upward and his skills get an upgrade too. Turns out the magic blade and magic power detection don't even kick in at the starting ranks, so he's finally blown past those beginner levels. He gives off this totally unamused vibe, like nothing's fun for him. Then the hero snaps out of his own head and starts denying it. He figures that hunting magic and gathering those mid-level skills is exactly what a real sage would do. Then the hero hits the realization that he'll just keep getting stronger and stronger. Lydia snatches a special magic stone, cups it in her hands, and raises it high as she blurts that he's huge. Then she grins and says it was only natural for a rare monster like a werewolf. Lydia clutches a bit of fur, grinning as she feels how soft and fluffy it is. Then the hero leans in and explains it's tough and built to last, and Lydia nods right along, fully convinced. She snuggles into the fluffy fur. Then it hits her and her face snaps into panic as Lydia bursts out, saying they can't stay here, and the hero immediately agrees. They've got to get back fast. Leon clocks it right away. Lydia's lingered too long, like something's weighing on her. Then she opens her mouth, stops cold, and snaps the moment shut. Right then, the main character leans in, decides to pry, and asks what really happened. She clicks her pocket watch and tells them, "We've got a little more time," then turns to the hero and presses him for the real reason they should hurry. At first, he hesitates when she asks, then the realization hits. This territory has already been explored. But just when he thinks he's got it covered, the girl snaps back, yelling that they've already gone plenty far. Lydia keeps pressing him to explain why he won't just aim for the upper floors, making the hero mutter, confused. And then Lydia declares they're stronger than ever, so they can't just turn back, and she demands the hero's choice. Up on the upper floors, the Lord-class monsters are everywhere, perfect targets to fight, rack up huge experience, and pull their focus off the members of the chaotic explosive flower. The hero tries to think, and Lydia jumps in. She insists she's not pushing Leon into anything, not yet. But she promises this will be the ultimate test of her fighting strength and skills. And somehow, the hero can tell she's really got something else on her mind. She acts like the whole situation slipped her mind. And then, boom, she realizes it's not over. She's shocked to spell out exactly what that one big problem is. We learn the sage has a strict time limit. Then the girl snaps her face into a new one and demands, "How much time is left?" And that's when it hits the hero, he's running out fast. Leon was locked in intimacy with Emilia all night, and by morning they both crashed from sheer exhaustion. He knows it starts right after ejaculation, but he also can't ignore the fact that he got this same message a couple of times, an hour after it was over. He asks her if there's a way to awaken the sage, and the hero, who's been piecing it all together, tells her the whole thing shuts down the moment he falls asleep. Leon remembers the message popping up right before his eyes started to shut. Then it hits him. He has absolutely no clue why any of it happened. He tells them they've got 1 hour left, and the girl immediately clocked it. Then, out of nowhere, she asks how far they could have gone if they still had 6 hours. Leon shoots back that it all comes down to what they prioritize. It hints they could have raced all the way to the 45th floor by taking the quickest path. Then Lydia starts to wonder, and the hero casually drops the bomb. The whole tower map is stored in his head. He screams in pure delight, calling it super cool. Then Leon chimes in. "Good news, we'll make it there, but bad news, we can't come back because going between floors takes way longer." Lydia's cheeks flush with embarrassment as she admits it's totally fine for her. Then the hero's jaw drops, and he pushes, asking her again. It hints that if things spiral out of control, they can just try again. So the hero freezes for a second, then snaps back and asks Lydia, "Are you really sure?" With that satisfied look, the Lord declares the tower's safety is in his hands, and insists nothing's wrong with her sharing that duty too, since she's his very own daughter. He says we should hold out for reinforcements, and right then Lydia snaps. "Stop talking, just do exactly what I say." Because as the Lord's daughter, she commands him to obey only her orders. The girl snaps on a new expression, hesitates for a heartbeat, then leans in and asks the hero, "So, are we doing this?" Lydia like this makes Leon squirm. His confidence cracks, and tension creeps straight into his bones. He nods along, convinced it won't matter anyway. Then the girl immediately lights up and declares she's thrilled the hero finally understood her. She spins away from him and urges them to hit the road right now because time is slipping away. Then Leon snaps, "Stop." He clamps his hands on her shoulders, pins her in place, and declares that he'll take the lead. That scream snaps the girl upright, tension flooding her body, and she folds into a tight, closed stance as she sinks to the floor. Then the hero's face drops and he blurts out, "Are you okay?" Everything's fine, she's just a little shocked for a second. Then Leon's still stuck, but he grits his teeth and decides to push it out of his mind. He tells them they're headed to the 41st floor and says he never would have found the monsters left behind if he hadn't checked first. Lydia can't help it and asks how the hero pulled it off. After they beat the werewolf, he levels up and breaks down how that's where his skills came from. Then the girl chimes in. She's scored 2 levels and now sits at 33. But she didn't earn a single skill. The hero decides to tap into magic power detection. He shuts his eyes tight, and blurry goblin images start flashing inside his head. It's tougher than he wants to admit, and Lydia clocks it instantly. Her worry spikes as she asks if he's all right, and he reassures her, saying he's fine because he just got hit with a ton of information. Leon snatched a shallow breath, spun around, and told her he had to try again, so she'd have to ask him all over once more. He says he can see the entire floor layout, and Lydia's instantly thrown into confusion. She screams at first, then snaps to attention like something just clicked in her mind. Suddenly, she demands to know if the hero truly wants to boost his magic power detection range. He nods, confirms it, and lays out how that wider range will supercharge the sensitivity enhancement. Seeing the excitement on Leon's face, she figures he didn't use it on himself and chooses not to step in. Then the hero turns away from her and locks in, zeroing in on what matters. The boost hits. Suddenly everything sharpens, and he can pinpoint which rooms the other monsters are lurking in, even catching a glimpse of a level 35 goblin general. He sweeps the area searching, spots a handful of treasure chests, and then, boom, realizes the floor is still packed with level 25 goblins and a level 32 kobold sitting right among them. He realizes that even though his eyes can't catch monsters clearly with this skill, it still blasts him with way more detailed info than he ever expected. A girl blurts his name when she sees him just freeze in place, yelling, "Leon, are you okay?" After a few tense seconds, the hero snaps back to his senses and swings his attention to her. Breasts, then his eyes snap open and he realizes she's totally without clothes, while the girl panics and blurts what happened. Right then, the hero explodes up from the bed, yanks his hands over his intimate parts and blocks Lydia before she can suspect a thing. She doesn't catch it, she's too focused on the way he's trembling everywhere. So she leans in and asks again how he's really feeling, and he insists, "I'm fine." He jerks away from her and snaps that he's gotten way too much to process, so he has to figure it out. Then he quietly fires off the cleanup skill, admitting he got so lost in it that he was already dripping in sweat. He tells him not to overdo it, and that's when he bursts into laughter. After a bit, the guys head up to the 36th floor and sprint along the right path. Lydia tells the girl to turn left and warns that they'll run into a kobold there, and when the girl hears it, Lydia snaps that she'll deal with it alone. Sure enough, the moment they meet the kobold, it locks eyes on them, then pauses, clearly thrown off by how they look. She lands with a snap of motion, right behind the kobold, yanks out her weapon, tells it picked the wrong fighter, and then, bam, she tears it down. So the guys reach the exit, and the hero turns to Lydia, asking how she feels after his magic pumped strength into her body. The girl nods and admits it. "Now I can fight for way longer." Then she grabs the pace and says she'll guide me up to the higher floors next. On the 37th floor, Leon cranks up his physical and sensory enhancements, then turns to Lydia and asks what's changed. She tells him that once he boosted the levels, magic hits harder too. He figured the impact would fade once they climbed upstairs, then pushed the plan forward, insisting the sage's time would be up any minute. The girl starts getting confused and asks what Leon plans to do once the sage is done, and that question hits him like a spark, right in the middle of his thoughts. It basically says they need to come back, and he makes it clear he can't pull this with Lydia every single time. At first, she shrieks every time she hears it, but then her screams fade and hesitation creeps in. She shrugs and says, "It's fine, so are we doing this?" The hero then presses, asking if Lydia truly wants the 41st floor, and the moment the question lands, she freaks out and screams she's going straight to the 45th. Tells them they'll have to haul themselves up 9 more floors, and she grins like, "Perfect, that's exactly where I'm headed." She has to make sure that tower is safe, because it's the only thing standing between the people and disaster, so it doesn't matter how many times she has to team up with the hero, 10, 20, or even more. Lydia isn't scared at all. She blurts it out, then Leon snaps, "Calm down." Right then, a girl shrieks, demanding, "Where's the safe zone?" so she can rush there. He tries to steady her with words, but when that fails, he snaps and grabs her by the shoulders. Right away, Lydia tenses up, and you can practically see the crushing embarrassment flood her face. Calm returning to Leon's voice, he tells her the sage's era isn't done yet, so there's no need to rush this right now. Then the girl suddenly clicks. She realizes something even bigger. She craves the hero's touch, and after a few tense seconds, Leon finally releases her. Then Lydia blurts out, voice shaking, that she gets him. He decides to apologize, sure she just got overwhelmed by everything that happened. Then the hero shuts it down and tells her it wasn't a wrong move at all, because wanting to be a responsible person is exactly what she should do. She snatches her weapon back up, tells her it's time to move forward, and a confident grin snaps onto her face, while pure excitement ignites in her eyes. The guys rocket up to the 38th floor, where Lydia arrives and wipes out the goblins in seconds. Then they burst into 39, only for the main character to deal with the monsters head-on. Next thing you know, the guys storm up to the 40th floor, where the girl jumps into brutal melee, and Leon backs her up with magic as they fight their way through. Then they finally hit the 41st floor and run straight into a whole new pack of goblins. They turn back and brag that every Lord-class monster on this floor is wiped out, and the girl admits with a shaky exhale that she finally feels better. He blurts out, "How much longer?" And she glances at her watch like it's counting down, then says, "About 5 more minutes." He races toward the deformation zone, but when he reports back, it hits him. Back then, the girl had already offered to take him to the safe zone. Yeah, they blurt out in shock and stare at each other like, "Wait, what?" The hero snaps that they should stop right here and turn back, but she digs in, insisting they push on to the 45th floor. The members hear her snap that she doesn't want to do it anymore, but she quickly clarifies. She only meant that it didn't matter anymore. And then, out of nowhere, she spots something and erupts into a scream. He checks if the hero's wise man condition always works after just 1 hour. And when it doesn't, he snaps back that it played out differently. Tests rush through the race for the safe zone, and the moment they clear that condition, the hero can finally keep pushing forward and uncover even more about it there. Leon presses again for more, and she's hit with such brutal embarrassment that she blurts out, "You can do it to me," then quickly looks away, too nervous to even meet his eyes, waiting to hear what he's got next. Heavier still, he nods and agrees to hit the safe zone first, just like Lydia demanded. The moment she hears it, Lydia rockets upright and fires off, "Are you serious?" And the hero answers, "Yeah, I am." Honestly, in his eyes, it's not that bad to get to do it with a beautiful girl, like Lydia. The second those words hit the air, she shoots up and blurts, "Again, do it." He whips around and snaps, "You've got 1 minute left." While the girl can barely stay upright, mortified to her bones, then the guys finally scramble into the safe zone on the 41st floor. With a quick politeness, he nudges the girl to go first. She thanks him instantly. Then he slips into the room, shuts the doors behind him, and just like that, strange sensations rip through his body. He rushes to Lydia and drops the bombshell that the sage's era is finished, and Lydia just freezes, blushing hard, torn between doing it or backing out. Raising the class level supercharges everything tied to it, and even after the class change, that skill still works, at least for a while. Lydia blurts that a red magician's power crushes a level 1 sage, but with the sage now hitting level 3, the tables flip hard. And even as she feels Leon's strength ramp up, Lydia still can't move. Leon looked at her and said, "Don't hammer yourself like that, you don't have to carry this so heavy," because honestly, it's not even that scary if they turn back now. Earl slammed down with an axe and roared that he didn't want any part of this tour, and the guy shot back, "No, I just said it." Lydia cut in, snapping, "So what do you do or don't do? Your choice." Earl clenched his jaw and said he wanted to. So yeah, then they could go for it, and honestly, it doesn't even bother her. If Leon wants in, why wouldn't she want the same? He straight up asked if she wanted to do it too. She blushed hard, then flailed her hands and snapped that she'd never said anything like that. So Leon panicked and screamed just to calm her down. She shoved her weapon against the guy, and the second he went down, Leon hit the floor with a brutal cry. Right beside me, Lydia slid down and insisted she was calm. After thinking it through, she decided hugging him was 100% non-negotiable. If they teamed up, they could surge through the higher floors at the same time, leveling up faster while thinning out the toughest monsters too. And with that, the Lord's daughter is getting stronger, which has the whole city smiling like it finally caught a break. Leon blurted out that they could have actually cleared the 50th floor if they'd pushed harder, and with reinforcements supposedly racing toward them, he awkwardly guessed they might still scrape into the 45th. She climbed onto the guy's lap, and Leon's heart raced as he swore he could feel her warmth through his trousers. She was soft, too, The girl went betrayed, then let out a shaky, breathy exhale. Cheryl's cheeks flared as she insisted she was only doing it to boost the safety level and keep the tower secure. Then she urged herself to hug him tight. Leon snapped back that he wanted the same thing, and Lydia just grinned, saying she knew it all along. Leon knew there wasn't any choice left. He just needed a big hug, so he awkwardly started to say that, and then Lydia cut in, told him to calm down, and promised it was okay. Lydia squeezed tight and let out a blood-curdling scream. Leon's teeth clenched, and with excitement burning in him, he grinned and told her to slow down. She flung her head back and screamed even louder, panting in exhaustion. Leon shut his eyes, knowing he couldn't hold it in anymore. They let go of the hug and both sighed hard. They all squeezed into each other in a tight hug. So tight it felt like the moment they hit the safe zone. Leon's instincts screamed that the sage's time was up, even if he couldn't quite explain why. Lydia thought the feeling enhancement effect was still running. His body was still buzzing with that pleasant warmth, so they didn't move from this position. As she felt it resting on her shoulders, she couldn't shake the fact that Lydia seemed weird right now, because that surge of heightened sensitivity had her acting this way. The guy was sure every condition was met. Then the sage's power erupted to life. Leon swore this was the moment, even if he still couldn't shake the weird thought that getting hugged was somehow part of the deal. Leon insists this power kicks in when hugs squeeze extra tight, and he's desperate to find out how it works. Right then, he heard a heavy sigh. She muttered, totally embarrassed, and Leon caught it instantly. Her clothes had ridden up a bit. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, face flushing with concern, and told him to ignore her. Leon leaned in and pressed his hand to her head, while the guy blurted that he was activating purification. The surprise hit, and Leon snapped back that he'd purified it away. The girl brightened instantly, saying she felt way better now, and he leaned in, asking if she was truly okay. Leon leaned in, stunned. "What do you mean?" The girl froze, cheeks blazing, then shrieked, "It's nothing," with the sheepish look of someone who definitely meant it. He must be doing it all thanks to his writing skills, and he's pretty hyped about how powerful that trick is, so you can stop worrying. She told herself she was picking it up fast, like some refined, noble lady. Yet those awkward expressions still felt impossible to accept, and Leon, completely baffled, only blurted that Lydia was absolutely charming. Up they climbed to the 42nd floor. Lydia wiped out yet another monster and yelled, grinning, that she leveled up again, while Leon barked that he did too. The girl insisted everything was running perfectly and said he'd unlocked brand new skills. Leon told Lydia he'd landed a quick casting call, and Lydia gasped, "Already? That's a level 70 skill from a top magician, right?" Leon just shrugged, saying even the legendary Lloyd from Asterisk Sword of the Wolf's Fang never got one. Leon couldn't help but grin. What a quote, seriously brilliant. He figured the quicker they level up, the faster their research flows, clean and effortless, and they were already almost at the finish of the 43rd floor right when the sage's run would finally stop. They pushed toward the 45th floor. Lydia leaned in and asked, "So what now?" The guy grinned and said they were heading straight up to the 45th. Then he looked at her and asked, "You hungry?" Nothing, no region magic, no potion, could ever plug the hollow inside her, and when the girl heard it, displeasure flashed across her face. Still, she was desperate to keep traveling with them. Even though the sage is gone, the magic he powered keeps burning on. There aren't any Lord-class monsters left below the 45th floor. And no, he isn't some helpless, burden-red magician or not. Lydia just shrugged and said she didn't care. She demanded, "Tell me what I should do, what I shouldn't," then blasted, loud as thunder, that nobody could promise they'd ever come back safe, and Leon, mortified, tore his gaze away and stammered back an answer to what they had to do. He screamed that they could do it. Leon stared at him stunned, and Lydia admitted it with a shy little nod. Then she suddenly shot her hand out and barked, "Wait," and admitted, cheeks burning, how mortifying it felt when Leon stared at her like that. Leon said he wouldn't watch it, and she blinked in shock, asking how he could still manage to do it. So why would she ever turn away from him, unless the clothes were about to get yanked up? Lydia admitted it, cheeks burning, and Leon told her, "Fine, stand up, then plant your hands on the wall." Near the wall, she asked what it felt like, and Leon told her to raise her torso a little. Lydia tried it, but begged, "Is it working? Come on, hurry." The guy nodded and said he got it. Girl, she swore it had to be the final time. Then Lydia's face erupted in embarrassment as Leon wrapped his arms around her. She tries to argue it's all just unwanted accidents, but here's the problem. She didn't start out working with their team, and when you're the Lord's daughter next to a commoner, the gap in status is so huge that they never even should have crossed paths in the first place. Leon knew this already hurt like hell, and he figured this would be his last chance to hug Lydia. So he held on as long as he could until she snarled, "That's enough," and screamed him off. Lydia tightened her grip, and she let out a scream so loud it shook the air. Because they'd been clinging together for so long that she was already worn out, and the girls kept screaming from every last bit of what was happening. Exhausted, she finally let go and dropped. Then Leon shot in, grabbed her fast, and yelled for her to watch out. She waved it off and insisted she was fine, and when he saw everything was in place, the sage's power kicked on. On the 42nd floor, Leon finally healed the girl, and right after, Lydia and Leon sprinted after the last monster on the 43rd. Then on the 44th floor, Lydia tore through that final threat and finished it for good. That sage's clock had already run out, so Lydia grinned, snapped her weapon up, and roared at the monsters to back off, and just like that, they were wiped out completely. The couple escorted them all the way up to the 41st floor, and Lydia grinned, saying they made it here without trouble. So what now? Leon shot back that she'd let him try supportive magic first, and the guy wasted no time doing exactly that. He slapped his hands together and fought through his displeasure, and just like he feared, the result still couldn't touch what he got from that sage. He stared at Lydia and blurted out that he was sorry his magic wouldn't work. Lydia gasped, totally shocked, and asked what in the world he meant. She grinned so wide she could barely believe it herself, like seriously this was a spell a red magician cast. Didn't that sound unbelievable? The guy just stared, totally thrown off by what she said. Leon gave a bashful grin, agreed it'd be a cinch to search the whole floor now, and suggested they head for the stairs. Then the girl shot him a quick look and asked, "You're sure?" Leon blurted, all awkward, "So why didn't we hit the safe zone first?" And Lydia's face went red as she panicked, screaming, "I'm not worried about you at all." But what she really meant was simple. If things got ugly, they could still do it. Leon froze in shock, then the girl screamed, "That's impossible." The guy shrugged, "It's fine," and Leon demanded, "Wait, what is the safe zone you're talking about?" He shrugged it off and asked what was going on. Then the guy snapped back that he could feel some wildly powerful magic in the air. So Lydia asked if they'd maybe overlooked someone, and he swore this whole place was a deformation zone. The girl burst out, shocked and happy, asking how people could be like this, and the guy yelled that there were around 10 of them, like reinforcements had just arrived. They told Lydia to come to them instead of slipping into the safe zone, and Lydia shrieked that she wouldn't. Then they bolted forward until the guy finally shouted her name. With a warm smile, she could keep the sage a secret if she chose to. He stared at her, hopeful as ever, praying she'd actually pull off his request. Lydia blurted the question, shocked. Could he ever shake off that weakling reputation? Leon nodded and said he deserved real recognition, then smiled and thanked her for seeing the best in him. He admitted he was terrified it would land him in trouble. Then the guy slammed on the brakes, went dead silent, and wrestled with his words, making sure he answered it right. Leon asked, "If I tell everyone about the sage, do you finally show your terms?" Because he knew they'd get it, how they could only be 2 people and still pull off the impossible. Beat the werewolf, rocket up to the 45th floor, and make it back safe. She mumbled, a little embarrassed, that she truly didn't mind. Leon's face lit up with a big smile as he said he was grateful. But then he couldn't hold back anymore. He wanted to tell her something. He stared into her eyes and snapped that he didn't want Lydia butting in. Then Lydia went betrayed, blurting that Leon cared about her more than anything. Leon blared that if he could rake in a massive fortune from a raid on the tower, then he wouldn't have to stress about essentials at all. "Don't spoil the whole thing just because you're chasing a quiet life," he said. Then she looked at me and asked, "How was it?" Leona beamed and said, "If this is what Leon wants, I'm in. Tell me the plan, and I swear on everything I won't let a single soul find out about the sage." Lydia jerked to a halt out of nowhere and screamed for Leon to look up. Right ahead, 2 guards were stationed, and some guy was briefing them. Then the guy whipped around and stared at the couple. Screaming that he'd finally met Lydia, Leon shot her a surprised look. Then she burst out, "The older brother is here." She demanded to know why he was here, and the guy slapped his hands onto her shoulders. Then said the guildmaster told him to come. She cut in fast, firing back whether he'd contacted the defense forces himself, and he answered that he'd already rushed over. As the loud noise hit, he admitted it had already been half a month since Flaming Whirlwind retired, and then pushed, "Let's get out of here first so we can talk more." He leaned in, locking eyes with Leon, who stood right there and stared. Leon's brother barked, "We're gonna have a ton to talk about the second we're out." They headed into the city to catch their breath and swap stories, then rushed to the guild to hash everything out. Lydia's older brother apologized, asked to rent a room, and the girl waved it off with, "This way, please." Leon slid into the seat across from the girl's brother, and Lydia practically bounced as she called out, urging him to start talking. Then the guy barked, "Hold on a minute," and Leon stared back at him, zeroing in. A girl burst into the room, blurted out that she was sorry for keeping everyone waiting, and the guy waved it off. Everything was fine, so she should sit down. She insisted she was okay, then slid into the seat right next to Lydia. He said he wanted to introduce himself again. Ryan Kuvan, and he came here as a representative of the Lord, and the werewolf girl bowed in awe, calling it incredibly respectful that he'd come in the Lord's name. Meeting them felt like a massive honor for her, because she's Rita, the wild leader of the chaotic, explosive color. Lydia jumped in and said she didn't think she needed introductions, and the guy just grinned. "I'm Leon, a lone adventurer." Lydia finally got her chance to explain. So the guy shut his eyes, clearly not loving what was happening but desperate to hear what his sister had to say. Ryan knew they needed answers, so he locked eyes with her and asked why she was really there. She said she came to use the teleportation portal, and Ryan followed up by demanding how she ended up like this. With that smile, he opened his mouth, and Ryan, clearly annoyed, snapped, "What is it?" The guy clocked how ugly the vibe was and blurted the details with shaky excitement, and then Leon laid out everything to Ryan. He didn't understand, so he leaned on Lydia to get him up to the higher floors, and the moment he said it, the girl snapped and screamed that he had no right. He shot back, furious and smug. He was a red magician, wasn't he? And if that made him a burden, then so be it. Rita snapped, raging that Leon wasn't a burden at all, and Ryan, looking totally lost, blurts out, "Okay, but what really happened?" Lydia ducks her head and confesses, "I'll prove it." Then Ryan demands the details. "So what pieces are we talking about?" Stone stood in front of Ryan when Lydia's brother blurted in shock, asking how he'd managed to beat a werewolf. Because that was just unbelievable. Rita grinned and said Leon's backing with magic was incredible too, and Lydia nodded right along. He studied the stone like it might betray him, then shot a glance at everyone and blurted out, half thrilled, half terrified, while admitting with a sheepish voice that he was begging for forgiveness. Lydia finally understood Leon's a legit adventurer and helped her a ton. But then the real question hit. Why did they go after the upper floors? Lydia answered, because. Lydia said they should have stayed put in the safe zone on the 37th floor, because fighting a werewolf was a nightmare. Then admitted they had zero clue when the troops would finally show up. So once that's done, they can hustle back down to the lower floors. And the crazy part is, the whole place is guarded by adventurers instead of regular defense troops. In fact, those guards usually start showing up from the 31st floor. Way too embarrassed, Leon dropped his head, convinced he was right, then remembered it all. They only advanced thanks to the sage, so he begged Lydia to keep it secret, and the guy started, actually. Leon bows his head and sincerely apologizes. Then he's instantly thrown off when he asks what happened and realizes it's worse than he thought. Lydia's brother says his sister's weakness likely caused all the chaos. Ryan barked back, shouting that no, Lydia had helped him more than she'll ever know, and even if the upper floors are packed with danger, he still stayed by her side, then brought her back safe and sound. He blurted it out loud, pouring out his deepest apologies and gratitude, and Leon stared at him in total shock, then shot back that none of it was necessary. With that grin on his face, Leon knew he could push ahead and still throw down. Don't sleep on him because his power is no joke. He's still a deranged adventurer even if he's packed with talent, and the truth is brutal. He's only level 20 as a red mage, while the girl stares at him with straight-up displeasure. He admitted she had no clue how terrified he truly was, because he couldn't stand the thought of her being next after her father, and when Lydia froze in shock, she blurted out, "Wait, what happens after my father? What did they do to him?" The Seven Heavens Gladiator, the S-rank team he leads, got wiped out, and the girls screamed that the crew who cracked the Anu Tower had found the continent's deadliest dungeon. Yet somehow they still bulldozed the 99th floor in just a few days, and the guy just smirked and said, "Yeah, that's who I am." Then he said it like this, "About half a month ago, they started hitting the 100th floor, and they still haven't come back. Now it's been 10 days past the deadline." Lydia burst out as the defense forces and adventurers swept every floor from 91 to 99. Zero signs, not a single trace of the Seven Heavens Gladiator. And then she gasped, shocked out of her mind. "Wait, I'm standing on the 100th floor." Lydia's sister leaned in and whispered that's exactly where the boss gets drawn. Then the girl froze, unable to believe her ears. Lydia's brother told her none of the ones who raided the 100th floor ever came back, and he'd still thought their father's team could handle it, until everything went sideways. Lydia's voice cracked as she begged that they had to find his remains to uncover the truth, and Ryan snapped back that he already had. Then the girl swore with tears in her eyes that he'd come back out of nowhere, rocking that iconic laugh like a promise. Worry gnawed at him. Then the guard burst in and declared it was time for Ryan to go. He glanced at the new crew, told Leon and Rita they could leave, and shut it down with nothing else. He shoved back from the table and stared at the girl, buzzing with excitement. Then the guy called out for Lydia, but Ryan cut him off fast, apologizing through it, insisting it was family business and they had to talk. He could pocket those items as his own reward, but Leon said he wasn't convinced. The guard snapped Leon and Rita out of the room, and the guy stared at Lydia one last time. He smiled, grateful to Lydia for everything. The girl bit her lip and stayed silent. They stormed out of the room, then Rita said something wild and impossible had just happened. Leon grinned and said, "Without me, you'd be dead already," then shook her hand and urged, "When trouble hits, we've got to help each other." She knew everyone was panicking, so she'd slip back and thank him later. Then the girl stared him down and flashed a huge, fearless smile. Rita shrugged like it was no big deal, flicked her hand, and practically dared the moment. Why not? She'd get him to take her gratitude, but for now it could wait. Leon let out this strange, shaky breath as she walked away. Liam figured it was time to head back to the hotel and call it for today, but the next day rolled in. Then the guy showed up at the guild, and Miriam spotted him and waved him over. Leon shot back that yes, he'd had a rough day yesterday, and she leaned in, asking what dragged him here today. He said he wanted to show the items, and Miriam shrugged it off like, "Yeah, that works." Leon slammed everything onto the table and declared, "The Goblin Lord's bones and fangs." Then went on like there were universal class items everywhere, and Miriam just leaned in and said, "That's genius." Stone, grinning like he'd just won the fight, insisted he'd actually wiped out the werewolf. So he'd earned a promotion to C rank from the last expedition's results, and now he had to give her the card. Leon let out a wave of pure joy, convinced this was finally it. Promotion secured. She was sure Leon had earned every bit of it, and now that he'd been promoted to C rank, he could finally rake in steady rewards by pushing into the tower. The guy erupted, yelling that this time he was just insanely lucky. Leon used to be a sweet little kid, but now he's all grown up and dependable. So when Leon said it, he fumbled the words and admitted he was honestly relieved. Then his mind raced as he tried to figure out what this whole topic was really about. He then blurted out, asking if she'd marry him, and Leon figured she'd always been the perfect match. So he nodded and said she was always right there for him. The girl shrieked that she'd give it her all, and Leon snapped back, yelling that no matter what, he still had one dream in his bones: to be an adventurer. They both burst out in relief, laughing that they could finally head to work. She'd use her savings to buy a house, and they even threw around the dream of up to 3 kids, until Leon snapped, "Find someone better than me and do it soon." A loud bang ripped through the room, and he jerked his gaze toward the reception in shock. Miriam slammed the table with all her strength. Leon demanded what happened, and she answered, worn out and bitter, that it was one of those ancient excuses. He ripped open his shirt and bolted, screaming, "Who was that someone?" Then he couldn't stop wondering, why is she still single at 29? She's basically about to hit 30. Leon lit up and shot back, because she looks super young. Leon blurted that he'd marry her this instant, then begged for her to let him go. Miriam sobbed, insisting she was pleading for him and that she didn't have much time left, but the guy wheezed out, "I can't breathe." He rushed in and yanked her away as she screamed for him to stop and calm down. Yet Miriam yelled back, "No, I'm marrying Leon," because she insisted Leon had to help her and it wasn't fair. She stormed up to the guy, bowed hard, and apologized for the whole mess. Then Leon snapped back that it was totally fine. Yet the girl just stared at him, eyes locked on his. He couldn't have meant to spark misunderstandings. He just didn't know, and Leon still stumbled through an awkward, "What are you saying?" while Miriam kept propositioning people left and right. She'd been here for 3 years, and still she'd never laid eyes on anything like this. Leon threw his arms wide, grinned like he was excited, and said he'd already gotten used to it. Yeah, it was just that kind of place. Miriam always seems to tangle with some wolf, and Leon's got one wild thought. Maybe Miriam and the wolf's sword are linked, because the girl snaps that they treat Leon like trash, and that's why she's in trouble. She blurted out, all fired up, that she was sorry for making up things that never existed, and Leon should save this conversation for later, because Leon just stared back at her, totally awkward. After work, Leon trudged to his room, flopped onto the bed, and started spiraling. Had he really hurt Miriam's feelings? Should he go see Amelia? Then, bam, a knock hit the door. He slid into the bed, telling her it was fine to come in, and then Rita burst inside with a bottle, yelling, "Hello." And yeah, the guy totally figured he was in for a painfully long night, right? Leon nearly jumped when she asked, "What are you doing here?" Then she hurried him to a seat and smiled, saying she'd been dying to thank him properly. Rita leaned in, pointed at the table, and bragged that she knew the hotel inside and out. Then flashed a huge grin and said her spies were already right here. She shoved the bottle toward him and hissed, "Calm down, now it's time to drink." Leon asked, "You really want a proper rest, Miss Rita?" And Rita snapped back annoyed, "I'm not Miss anything, I'm just Rita." Rita burst out with joy, shouting that they were starting. Then the guy warned her not to go overboard. She fired back with what kind of survivors, and Leon insisted it was for the survivors and for their health. He coughed and Rita snapped her eyes to him in pure shock, then burst into loud laughter. With a grin, the girl teased that he'd have made a great funny guy, but something terrible had happened to him. Miriam's incident blew up, and he awkwardly admitted he didn't know what to do, while Rita pressed him, asking what he'd do if it was just one glass. He shrugged and said he was probably fine with it, like he could still sit down. Rita watched as they sailed past, and the couple was already grinning like nothing could go wrong. Then she huffed, "I don't get these kobolds, I don't like them at all," and just kept staring at the guy, waiting for him to finally say something. Leon snapped, "Yeah, they're seriously annoying," but admitted he can't claim he's got enough experience to be a tank. Then Rita blurted, just like always, "Next time we go research together." Leon asked real quick if it was okay to do it right there. Then Rita snapped that the drinks were gone. Leon panicked and said there were no snacks either, so maybe they should grab more, but Rita shot back, "No," and stood up. "That's it. Time to leave." Leon's bed. The guy blurted out, asking if she was all right. Maybe she was just worn out. Rita stared him down and said, "Listen to me." So when a girl rolls up to a guy and tells him she needs a breather after a brutal day, he can only do one thing, smile and take it. Rita jolted in surprise, flicking her tail side to side, and demanded to know if she'd made him wait too long, only for the guy to awkwardly blurt out that he didn't think she'd even thanked him yet. Sweet drinks and non-stop laughs aren't gratitude yet. They're just the warm-up for the holiday, and the girl stared at the guy before sinking back on the bed like she owned the night. She told him she'd only treat him, and Rita shot back, "Why only him?" The guy shrugged and said that even a simple "thank you" would be more than enough for what he did. Rita blinked in disbelief. How was it fair to call it unfair when he saved her life and she paid him back with alcohol and snacks? Leon stared at her, totally thrown. She didn't seem like she meant to be rude. She just claimed she couldn't stand girls who acted that way like him. Then she dropped the bomb. Her sisters said the same thing, and she figured if she changed her approach, everything would finally be better. Rita blurted out, laughing with pure joy, "You know what? I can't help it. She's drop-dead gorgeous, hilarious to talk to, and the vibe makes every conversation exciting." Then Leon just stood there, totally awkward, and muttered that he couldn't be held responsible for all that. She let out a big laugh and demanded if he honestly believed all this. Then Leon burst in, shaking his head, saying no, that's not what he meant. The girl's cheeks flared red. She brushed it off like it wasn't that serious, and she made it clear she wasn't asking him to marry her. Miriam was shrieking that she wanted to marry him, and Rita yanked the guy by the arm, yelling at him not to overthink it, while the guy blurted, "Wait, what's happening?" Leon leaned in and told her it was only for that night. Rita hugged him back, and he buried his face in her stomach, stunned that she'd made that bold, sudden move. Rita shot back, "Yeah, just one funny guy and one girl, and by morning it's all over." She kept her eyes on it, and Leon leaned in, hooked on the whole ride. Then Leon replied, "Got it." She burst into a loud laugh on the bed, grinning from ear to ear, and asked if they could go ahead. Leon's cheeks flared red as he stared at her without blinking. He grabbed the moment, staring at her eyes and asking if he could wrap her in a hug, and Rita's face lit up as she mumbled, bashful as ever, that it was all thanks. He could do whatever he wanted. Then the guy just nodded like, "All right then." He yanked her into a tight hug, and Rita's face lit up with pure embarrassment. Then Leon smoothed her clothes down and leaned in, asking what she was starting to like. She blushed harder, stammering that she was thinking about him a whole lot. Rita snatched her tail and yanked it into his grip. Then the girl shrieked for him to stop and let go. Leon demanded what would happen, and Rita warned that if he kept going, he'd regret it. Because the guy ignored her, squeezed harder, and the girl screamed even louder that she'd told him to stop. Leon snapped the question back, asterisk when asterisk, down to the exact moment, while the girl just shrugged and said it might be because it's the first time, and she wasn't even sure. Rita gasped, then screamed right in his face that he couldn't say it so bluntly, while Leon blurted, "So I'm your first?" The girl snapped back that if he hadn't rested, it would have been a tragic waste to let all that turn so much worse. Leon scanned everything and realized every condition was met. The sage's time starts right now. Rita let out a tired breath and asked if they could still meet if they could rest a little longer, and Leon, with a nod and a grin, told her sure. If she wanted it, thank you. The night collapsed the moment morning hit. Leon snapped his eyes open and sprinted to find Rita, but she was gone, like she'd vanished into thin air, and his excitement turned into frantic questions. He charged up the stairs and slipped into the dining room, and the bartender spotted him instantly, then teased, "How'd you enjoy yesterday?" Leon blurted out, flustered, "No, wait, what are you talking about?" The bartender just chuckled and told him not to stress, saying, "For a moment like this, it's honestly pretty good." He told Leon, "You should know Rita isn't into guys." Leon shot back, "What?" Then the dude admitted, "She's always run with women on her team, so yeah, you probably crossed the line." We nodded like, "Yeah, it all just went down like that," and he fired off, "So what did you pick already, and what are you eating?" We stared at him, then hit back, "Yep." He burst out into the main hall, and then he caught a voice calling, "Mr. Leon, come over here." The moment the guy turned, surprise hit his face as he stared straight at where the sound came from. Leon told her the Lord had left him a thank you letter. Then she demanded to see his guild ID. Leon said he was fine. She shot him a look with that card in hand and blurted out how grateful she was for the wait, then demanded he let her check his funds so there'd be zero mistakes. Leon's eyes went wide when the numbers hit 10 million. The girl nodded and told him, "If it's all right, sign right here." Leon said he was fine, but then Leon still awkwardly blurted, "What about Miriam?" Pearl said she must have gotten the time off like it was a vacation, and Leon snapped, "So this is how it ends?" He blamed himself. "How did this happen?" Pearl shot back, "It's not your fault." Then she admitted she busted her tail for it. And after the guildmaster told her to, she finally went on vacation. And because of her, people started calling him the bad guy. She just kept asking for forgiveness, insisting it would change. From here on out, he could finally speak to her as an equal, and Leon thought he got it until she said, "Thank you so much." Leon shot back with total confidence like, "Yeah, so he wants something else. Cool, then I'm applying for the expedition right now." He stared at the Royal Tower sign and swore it looked as proud as royalty, because to him, it was nothing more than a picture. Still, every place has its own engraved letters on the tower, and those names are exactly how they're labeled right now. That same letter even turns into the city's name nearby, and it becomes the Lord's surname too. He kept arguing, insisting that before the journey even starts, he has to pick the one starting point. And then Leon grinned and yelled, "First floor forward up to the top of the tower." Turns out the tower's restriction levels change with your rank. Like him, a solo researcher can't push past the 45th floor, and the last time around it was only D rank. Even with the limit holding everything back, some people swear the traits still faded, but Lydia's brother wasn't buying it. He marched to the door, opened it, and strode right through. Right now, the search kicks off from the ground floor for a shot at a long, solo outing. First, you've got to figure out how far he can go on his own. The monster burst out and sprinted straight at the guy with the torch, and Leon snapped, shouting that he was summoning a demonic arrow. Then he drove it right into the monster's head and dropped it for good. He grabbed the monster's tooth and figured, so far, no issues, because when you're up against weak opponents, you don't even waste a second on treatment. On the 5th floor, Leon spotted a pack of monsters. Then one of them shifted into a werewolf, and Leon's jaw dropped as he stared, thinking, so the boss is already here. He surged out of his seat and slammed the werewolf in the head, cracking him up. Then he turned on the smaller monsters, and Leon finished the job just as fast. He exhaled, stared at the loot dropping from the monsters, and the werewolf stepped aside like it wanted a show. Then the guy sprinted in, raised his sword, and sliced the werewolf clean in half. He stormed up to the 10th floor and wiped out every monster, then blasted through to the 12th floor and did the same. And after that, he hit the 15th and the 18th, like it was all one long rampage. He swept up all the awards again, then Leon glanced at his watch. 2 whole hours had already vanished. It felt like things were going great. Then his stomach rumbled loud enough to interrupt him, and he knew it was break time. Leon slipped into the safe zone and froze. Right, there was a full team of 5 staring back, and the guy blurted a shaky, "Hi," clearly feeling completely out of place. But he didn't say a word. Leon slid aside, opened the screen with his items, and stared it all down like it held the answer. Then his thoughts landed on, so. He tossed it onto the ground and dug in, tea in one hand, a hot dog in the other. He sipped something warm, sighed out pure happiness, grabbed a snack, and figured his appetite was about to be well fed. Then someone rolled up and asked what sweet he had. He snapped his head toward the other team's guy, and the guy nodded back like, "Yeah, I figured it was you." A fresh acquaintance leaned in and said it looked downright delicious. Then the guys on his own team erupted. calling him a total lost cause, a sweet-hot dog, and there was no chance of backing down. Displeasure flared in his voice as he snapped that he didn't get it. Then the guy demanded, "Am I the only one here?" Leon whipped his head around, staring at his brand-new acquaintances before they could speak. The guy suddenly blurted out that it probably wouldn't be too much to ask. Leon awkwardly said, "No worries," and that he just needed a cup. So the guy grabbed a mug, grinned, and practically shouted that it would help them all a ton. Then it would have popped out in 100. Sure enough, the guy tossed him a coin, and Leon blurted, "Thanks a ton." The whole time, he couldn't shake the idea that inside the tower, whenever you swap something, any products or whatever, you've got to pay back something in return. He figured something was off the other day when his path kept shifting left and right as he passed by water, and that strange incident is exactly what later earned him an award. Then the whole thing got sealed with Rita. He even told them they could drink anything, and the guy burst out, "I'm serious. Thanks a lot." She leaned in and said the tea was scorching, and she just grinned like, "Yep, it smells amazing." Leon flashed a smile and added, "If you want, we can pour more." They grabbed all their stuff and bolted for the exit. Then the guy yelled, "Go, it's time." They thanked him with all they had, and Leon just nodded like, "Yeah, you'd better do your best out there." Leon stretched, grinned, and muttered that he needed sleep for now. Then he poured water from a barrel into a kettle, cranked his power to heat it up fast, and brewed his tea. He wheeled his sleeping bag out and kicked it open on the floor, then slid right inside, eyes closing fast as hell because today absolutely wrecked him. The research finally landed. Leon stormed up to the 30th floor and started tearing into monsters, and the guy knew one thing. From here on out, that soldier's class is gonna be a nightmare, so we'd better go all in. He chest-bumped his way through it all, focusing on building strength, muscles, emotions, and magic. And after that, he mowed down every monster, grabbed a meal, and crashed for sleep. Day 3 of research is here. Leo drops to the floor, grabs a cup of coffee, and gulps it like a lifeline because that smiling guy swears it'll wake him up. He's tucked safely in the 35th floor area. He's a strong werewolf. He swings his sword to fight back, and of course, like a soldier, he keeps his head under pressure. Then he barks out that he's ready to call down an electric discharge. 40th floor, Leon runs into a heavyweight boss, and somehow he shuts him down without breaking a sweat. He exhales hard, thinking, so this is where the real swarm of general class monsters hits. And he figured he'd better take his rest out there, away from the tower, because you've got to be in top physical shape. The guild employee grinned and said like it was fact that he'd nailed it. He gushed that trekking all 40 floors of that tower in just 3 days was straight-up mind-blowing. Then Leon scratched the back of his head and started scanning the room, because he was desperate to find someone. And Miriam was still out cold, just resting. Leon said that's how it had to be. She shoved a card into his hands and declared it was his reward for coming back next time. Then Leon promised he'd crash and rest for about 2 days. Miriam smiled and told him, once those days were up, she'd be waiting for him. Leon gazed up at the starry sky and realized it was pitch black. So he decided to call it a night for now, and the guy finally went to rest. He headed back to that familiar spot to meet his girlfriend, and when Amelia showed up, she grinned wide and told him, "You came again." She grabbed him tight and asked if he hadn't promised. He hugged her back, beaming, and said he was so relieved. Then he admitted he hadn't bathed in over 3 days, and she told him, "Go on, do it first." In the morning, Amelia jolted awake and stared at Leon. He grinned and said, "Good morning." And she asked if it wasn't even morning yet, only for Leon to admit they'd fallen behind schedule. Amelia clung to the rumor and insisted they must have been sleeping together nonstop. Then she practically burst with relief, saying she just needs 2 or 3 more days to rest. Magic turns everything way more intense, and after what happened last time, she admitted she still couldn't move, even if she kept insisting. "I'm fine." Amelia locked eyes with him and flashed a sweet smile, stumbling out that only he could make her feel that way. Leon grinned back, beaming that it made him so happy to hear it. He leaned in and told her to get ready, and Amelia snapped back, "Are you really leaving already?" The guy grinned and said, "Yeah, it's time, I'm going." Leon and the girl stormed into the guild, and she waved him in like, "You're welcome." Leon stepped forward and said he wanted to apply. Then, out of nowhere, someone shouted his name. He turned his head, and there was Lydia. She lit up with a smile and asked how he was doing, and after all this time, she found him looking way too cheerful. He grinned back, saying, "Yeah, sort of." Also applying to explore the tower. Lydia shot back, "Yeah, but first I need to talk to you." He blinked in shock, "Wait, what's wrong?" Lydia stepped right up, her voice steady, I'm the problem, so talk to me." With a grin split across his face, he asked, right on her chest, that she wouldn't agree to join his group, and Leon stared in shock like the whole situation had flipped in an instant. Leon's eyes caught hers, and she lit up and basically begged him to join her team. The boy instantly turned red, stared at her like a deer in headlights, because he never saw an offer like that coming. They carved out a little room to talk, slid into the farthest table, and Leon blurts, "Thank you so much for inviting me," even though he still wasn't totally sure. And blurting out a confused, "Are you good enough for my team?" She watched Lydia smile, then Lydia shot back with total confidence. "Of course, everything's perfect, you're in." That's exactly how it went. Thanks a lot for her words. Lydia stared at him, then nervously blurted that she'd really love it if he'd accept her invitation. He demanded to know who she'd invited besides him, and Lydia snapped back that it was only him, no one else. "If that's okay," she added. Then Leon cut in with a grin, asking if she really expected the power of the sage to save the day. She blushed hard and looked past him, and when he asked, she admitted it was too smaller than he expected, like she was embarrassed. Leon frowned and said it was the same deal, then pushed her again. He needed to know she was absolutely ready, because the Baron was up next. She lifted her head with fearless confidence and shouted that there was nothing to fear, because she was just as ready as any adventurer to face the truth. She might not come back, and he didn't have to worry. "Yeah, that's how it is, but then she's gotta line up a replacement," Lydia said with a bright smile, already picturing the handoff to her older brother. "And don't worry, the other big brother will be back soon." Lydia answered that the older brother, just like his father, was an adventurer who rode from place to place across the country. Then she said she'd heard his father's team had been smashed, cutting his career short for good. Carol's smile turned warm and bright as she blurted out, "I have to inherit my father's will and become a hero," and Leon couldn't believe it, because the way she said it made it sound like she truly wanted to be one. He left his village for this city, sure he'd finally become a hero too. Then he met Wolf, set off on that journey together, and swear his heart was roaring with hope, until everyone else kept leveling up and leaving him in the dust. He kept telling himself he had no comrades to back him up, so instead of freezing, he pushed through and trained to fight his own way. Living in this city didn't feel so terrible to him. At least, that's what he told himself. Then Leon dropped his chin, leaned in, and blurted out, all fired up, asking the girl what kind of hero she thought she could become. Leon whipped his gaze to the girl, and with fearless confidence she blurted out, "Yeah, of course we can do it." Leon stared at her, stunned by how instantly certain she sounded. Alone, he was just a low-master red magician. Yet with her he turns into a full-blown sage, and the dreams come roaring back. Leon says they can, and she says, "Yes, they can." Leon decisively urged him to take her offer, and Leon shot back that he wanted to travel with Lydia too. Her face lit up with pure joy. With a bright grin, he confessed he just wanted to become a hero with her, and Lydia beamed hard at his words. Then he pressed her. Had she already picked a name for the team? She smiled and said, "Yep," because she'd stared at it for a long time. She jabbed a finger at him and yelled that their bond was pure, unbeatable determination, then beamed like a proud genius, because she'd totally nailed the coolest name. Lydia couldn't hold back. She blared that with all their grit and determination, they'd be invincible, and that they were about to become the best adventurers around. Lydia's grin burned with ultimate determination, and she yelled that one day they'd be heroes. So Leon demanded what that ultimate determination even meant, and Lydia shot back, "What's bothering you?" When they finally hit the limit, she snapped, "Too little determination." And the guy fired back, "If you're talking limits, you push for the top." Lydia blurted, shocked, "The top, really?" He locked eyes with Lydia and boldly promised they'd snag control of the continent's toughest fortress, Onayu, and the girl practically squealed, "Yes." She clung to his neck with arms, yelling how amazing it was. Leon snapped in shock, "What?" And she blushed, urging him to stop before everyone stared. The guild worker grinned and told them the request was approved. She'd already accepted it to form a team. Ms. Lydia and Mr. Leon both sit at rank C because the squad is just them, and that's under 2 people. And he told the girl that the real, unbeatable drive begins at rank D. Then Lydia and Leon headed straight for the dining room to hammer out their plan. So they could hash out their next move because their goal was simple: become heroes. Now you've got to take towers in every region, but first you have to nail one task. Lydia said it was time to take the local Queen Tower, because before she even left the city, her brother laid down a brutal punishment for failure. So yeah, she had to conquer that tower. Rian said, "If we can't crack the Queen Tower, we don't even need to worry about the Yunu Tower." And now the real problem isn't muscle. It's how far the levels will let them rise, and Lydia said she knew. At Team D's level, they can't climb past the 40th floor. Luckily, they've got a C rank, so they're cleared to roam all the way up to the 45th, meaning C rank still won't cut it for the 50th floor. but expeditions up to the 49th are fair game. They said to tear into the top floor, they need one more key, and then the plan flips. Their real target is boosting their team's rank, because that's exactly what they're going to do. Lydia said the bigger issue wasn't the plan, it was the crowd and the class size, because the two of them still had to keep digging and boosting their reputation. The team's rank screams how strong they are, plain and simple. Bigger parties get higher ratings than smaller ones. He hung his head and with a sad sigh admitted he was a red magician, then asked for forgiveness. Lydia lit up and told him, "Don't sweat it, because Balan isn't that bad, they've got this." With a grin, the girl blurted that everything would speed up if they switched to a higher class. Leon leaned in, eyes wide, and asked her level. She laughed and said, "Level 39. They'd grin and walk away at that point, because it's way smarter to do it right after you hit the highest level, not before, since growth won't just magically show up the moment the class levels up. Lydia shot back, "If you really want to be heroes, you've got to grab the chance to grow up, because once the class gets raised, there's no turning back and it can't be cancelled. It takes the duo ages to climb their ranks, so they try a shortcut." The guy throws his head back and straight up asks if he can bump up the number of people. Said it could work if they brought in 2 rank C members. Then he trailed off because the moment they added more, it all changed. The girl's cheeks flared bright red, and Leon snapped his gaze to her in shock. Brightly, he told them that if this many people teamed up, they'd storm the tower and he'd finally stay a red magician. Then Lydia stumbled through, awkward as ever, saying, "Sure. Maybe that's what the sage would do next," while Leon insisted that once the assault is finished and they're a duo again, they can hold onto their rank. They were thrilled to think they could team up again, and the girl leaned in with a huge smile, until she suddenly coughed, mortified she'd been way too loud. And he insisted it wasn't just about wanting her by his side. If they had to recruit more people, he'd trust them, and she'd be thrilled to see them step up and perform. He told them he's hunting for the next party member, an adventurer ranked C, ideally with a top-tier job, someone who's not just strong, but also perfectly convenient to work with. Rita sauntered up to him with a bright smile, and Leon's cheeks flared as he realized she could tell they were getting into some seriously interesting stuff in this city. She came from a chaos-blasting explosive flower. Rita flashed a smile and asked, because they were hunting for a support they could trust and tell you all the details. A smile because she needed support lit the moment. Leon stared at her, buzzing with excitement, and blurted, "What is it?" He definitely didn't expect a girl like her to ask him something like that. Rita grinned wide and said, "We were just wandering the center." Then they headed straight to the guild. And now Lydia stared in shock like, "Wait, the two of you and that other guy from the chaotic explosive flower." They were stuck in the hospital and Lydia practically burst with excitement. "Is everything bad?" But the girl shook her head, saying they were perfectly healthy, only the doctor wouldn't give them a prescription. If it weren't for the guild's deal, they'd already be cured inside the tower, so Lydia demanded answers. "Why does the guild think this makes sense?" And Rita's friend snapped back, saying there was no time for a lecture here. Her wounds sealed up for real thanks to the medicine Leon shoved into her hands, so she caught her breath for a second, then jumped right back in, all because of him. And Leon was furious, yelling that she was the scout. She flashed a smile like she hadn't even bothered to introduce herself, then hit him with, "My name's Maya, nice to meet you." Leon answered with a sheepish grin, Yeah, I'm the same," and she just laughed back, "Call me Maya." Leon, Lydia, and the girl said there were 2 macaws here. She asked what was perfect. They said they didn't think so at all, and the couple stared at her in shock. Guarded the tower with 0 mercy, yawning like a thunderclap, because standing alone was soul-crushingly boring until familiar faces finally showed up, and he grinned and declared he was good. He grabbed him by the neck, smirked that he'd been alone just a bit ago, then, boom. He glued 3 beauties together, slapped him on the back, and yelled for him to keep a close watch on them. He threw it out there, blasting, "All right, let's hit the road, an expedition." Then snapped that extras shouldn't grab the leader's role. Leon stared at her and asked if she wanted him to drive, and the moment the guy heard it, surprise lit his face as he blurted, "Wait, what are you doing?" What? The girl blurted out that Lydia was the leader, and she sounded stunned by how solid and unstoppable his determination was. Leon stared in shock and demanded, "Wait, what? Why is he the leader?" Broadly nodded and said, "Yes, she thinks he's perfect for this role," and Leon hesitantly muttered, "I'm just a commoner, a red magician." She said loud and clear that none of it mattered, because before all this, she'd already followed his orders and came back from the expedition alive, and Leon couldn't shake the uneasy thought that she was being selfish. It had to be the leader up front, blazing the trail for everyone else, Rita said with a smile like she always did, while Maya shot back with annoyed disbelief. Her sister only charges forward without a single thought. He says if he steps back for a second, he can read the whole situation and call the right moves. She's convinced nothing will go wrong with him in charge. She kept insisting on it, and the avant-garde, somehow, felt like the key in his hands, like he'd finally master it. She was sure he'd become the perfect leader, and the moment Leon showed up, that girl stared at him with pure, shaking excitement. The guy confidently blurted, "I've got this, I'll do it." Lydia beamed and said she'd already applied no matter what, and Leon practically exploded with excitement. "I know, it's all about feelings, just feelings." With his throat burning, he yelled, "All right, we're going." Leon stepped in front of the girls and confidently roared, "We're going to the 41st floor, because we have to." On the 41st floor, Rita stared down the monsters, screamed for the sixes to crash into her, and swung her massive shield with everything she had. Maya yanked the hammer up and swung hard, but the monster still slipped away. She circled behind it, yelling that it was slow, then drove her knife straight into its neck. He lunged at the next monster and screamed that he was summoning lightning, then blasted it with a colossal bolt. He snapped his head up, grinning as if he couldn't wait for what came next. A smiling monster lunged at him and screamed, "Defend yourself." Then she snapped her gaze at the huge beast and roared that she'd take down the orc general herself. An ordinary monster burst into view in front of the orc general, and without hesitation he stepped forward to guard his leader. Then Lydia snapped with a furious cry, slamming him back so he'd get out of the way. General grunted, heaved his weapon overhead, and roared. Leon screamed for lightning to strike, and Maya hurled a dagger that slammed into his shoulder, yet still nothing happened. Lydia screamed at the orc general. Then he whipped out of the way and snapped her spear mid-swing, thrusting it straight at her like he'd read her next move. With her massive shield, she blocked the orc general's strike and spun the blow aside. Right when the chaos opened up, Lydia lunged in and smashed the monster while he was distracted by another girl. Orcs tore their meat free and bared their teeth, while Lydia blared, "This is a victory." And Leon realized the expedition was only meant to run 4 nights and 5 days. And he figured it all happened because they'd finally let more C-rank members in, bringing in Rita and Maya. So the peerless Ultimate Determination team, now a C-rank crew, got the green light for an expedition all the way up to the 49th floor. One scrap of food and boom, Day 1 rockets them to the 44th floor, Day 2 blasts them to 47, and on Day 3 they smash right into the stairs up to the 50th. Then 2 days later, they drop to the 41st floor and slip back through the portal. On the 44th floor, the safe zone, Rita beamed and asked how they'd be split up. Leon grinned and said, 4 of us. Then he explained they'd come in pairs, 2 taking turns to rest and 2 keeping watch. Lydia smiled right back and asked what she could dole out in batches. Lydia blurted out, far too thrilled, hoping the princess and Leon would finally share a bed, and it felt totally unfair. She then shrieked in pure embarrassment like, "Why am I saying this?" The girls just stared at each other. Lydia blushed and shot back a quick question. Then Rita lit up, saying that when the adventurers, a man and a woman, were together, it felt like there was nothing to be done. Lydia's cheeks flamed as she stammered, "What?" While Maya grinned and blurted out that the self-defense forces had just started patrolling the upper floors. Rita shot back, "What self-defense forces are you talking about? This is a huge problem for us. Think it through. If we misstep, it gets dangerous." And Leon nodded. "That's exactly what I mean." He leaned into the girl with a grin and asked, "What if I stayed with Maya?" And the girl perked up, blurting, "What, you mean me and you in the same room with a man?" Rita flashed that unstoppable grin, and suddenly it was clear. Rita and Lydia weren't sleeping apart. They'd be side by side, and not just the 2 of them. Maya huffed out a breath, nodded that it was the right plan, and then he couldn't wait. He leaned in, asking what happened. Maya just smiled and said, "Everything's fine." She crashed into Rita's arms, and Rita snapped, "Breathe, you're safe." The girl's sobs shook her as she finally broke down, tears spilling, begging for forgiveness. He leaned in and told her she didn't need to apologize at all. Then Maya hugged her even tighter, repeating over and over that she'd done nothing wrong, and it was totally okay. Rita stared at Leon and asked if he could really stand guard by himself. Leon shrugged and said it was no problem at all. She then turned to the princess like, "Is this okay with you?" Lydia answered, "If Leon doesn't mind." Rita nodded and said, "Thanks, then we're staying here tonight." On the bedspread, Rita flopped down beside Maya, and after that brutal day, both girls passed out fast. Leon slipped in beside them too, careful not to wake a single breath, just staying there, watching like a guard. He remembered the bartender saying the woman from that chaotic flower explosion crew once had a run-in with a guy, and the moment he heard it, he snapped his head left and right. As Rita started to wake up, she walked up to him with that bright smile and gently ordered him to bed. So he dove into the sleeping bag and passed out fast. Then, out of nowhere, someone started calling his name. And then he spotted Lydia and she grinned. It's already 6 a.m., time to get up. So the guy blinked awake, mumbled a good morning, and she mirrored it right back, while Leon turned his gaze toward the other girls. She slid him a mug of tea and apologized for yesterday, and Leon grinned like it was no big deal. He'd slept well, everything was fine. He felt the air had finally cooled between them, like she'd calmed down for real. Rita plopped down beside him and asked if he wanted coffee. Leon crawled out of his sleeping bag and said, "Yes, thank you." And that's how the expedition rolled on without a hitch. They stuck to the plan, and by the night of day 5, the whole squad came home safe, standing inside the guild walls, unhurt and breathing easy. The girl from the guild swallowed hard and said she was begging for forgiveness, but they still wouldn't let them reach the 50th floor. Leon shot up, stunned. What? That reputation for the expedition still wasn't enough, so the guy snapped, "What if we run it again?" The girl shook her head, saying she couldn't do anything from her side, and Leon leaned in, hoping they'd return to the duet. The guild worker forced out an awkward grin and blurted that once he checked their team rank, he'd make it a D. Then the whole crew hustled outside to talk. He figured their friends would bounce back soon, so they could bulk up the team. But Leon shot that idea down. If the duo returned with more numbers, the final score would get worse, and now he's got his sights set on continuing to patrol the participants. Rita said it was true. If they tested him, they'd still come back and cause trouble, and Leon just smiled, thinking, next time I'll finally climb to the C rank. Rita blurted it to her sister, and when Rita asked what was going on, the girl fumbled out an awkward mumble, then froze mid-sentence, snapped that it was nothing, and rushed the words out loud. Rita snapped her head around and locked eyes with Leon, while her sister stood there awkwardly. Leon. He didn't even clock it and just said they could rest tomorrow. They agreed to meet at the guild the day after tomorrow, and Rita nodded, saying, "Yeah." Lydia grinned like everything was finally set. Then the couple said their goodbyes to Maya and Rita and headed straight home. Maya shot him a disgusted look, then whirled away in a heartbeat. Meanwhile, he rubbed the back of his head like, "What did I do?" Because it was the middle of the night and he couldn't figure out what was wrong. Leon got right to work. First he hit the butcher, then he swung by the drinks vendor, then he headed into the dining room to chow down. That's when the bartender leaned in and said, "You've got a visitor," and Leon snapped, shocked. Where? Only to be told the visitor was sitting in that very corner. Leon admitted he didn't mind the evening light, and the guy immediately went, "You're a big deal around here." So Leon awkwardly shot back that she was just an adventurer friend. Then he slipped up to the table and greeted Maya, "Hello," and her face lit up as she chimed, "Yes, good evening." He stepped right in front of Maya and snapped, "What's up with you today?" And the girl practically burst with excitement. She said she'd really love to talk to him, and he leaned in, listening to every word. Leon blurted that it was dinner time now, so it had to be better. Then he asked what they could eat together. She shot back that she'd already eaten, so there was no point. She smiled at them, set the dishes down on the table, and told Maya she was grateful they'd waited. Then Maya asked if she could pour another drink, and she grinned, of course. If he could get a bottle back then, he just needed to bring him a glass. So the waitress said she was listening and would handle it right now, and Maya burst out that she'd pay for the drinks. With that grin, he was saying, "Nope, I'll pay." And then she fired back, "I can pay, I can pay." Maya blurted, shy and shaky, that she wasn't, and she begged him to just listen, while Leon declared he wanted to make a toast. Maya grabbed another glass and insisted it didn't matter. He could finally eat in peace. Then the girl started chugging glass after glass, and the guy stared at her in total shock. Maya practically burst with excitement, begging for forgiveness like she was hurrying him along, and Leon just grinned back. Fast is a must-have talent for any adventurer. Red Maya leaned in, all excited, asking if everything was okay. She just stared at him with tired eyes and said, "Yeah, it's fine." Then he pressed her for what she actually knew about her team. This team has a legendary 50-plus year tradition, and Leon demanded to know who led it now. So Rita, the 5th leader, stepped up and promised that the girls of this city would be thrilled to join. With a smug grin like he'd totally clocked it, he watched. Maya's cheeks flared as she awkwardly blurted, "Yeah." But then he went and did it anyway. Maya shut her mouth and chugged straight from the bottle, and that guy immediately screamed in shock that. Leon blurted, "Wait, what's happening?" Right as the guy snapped, shouting that they needed to head to his room. And she mumbled, all awkward, that she didn't want a single soul to hear. The guy stared at her in shock, then nodded and went along with it. Next thing they knew, they were headed straight into his room. Leon collapsed onto the bed and let out a tired breath. Then all he could think about was his meeting with Rita in this very room, convinced this talk wasn't going to stay simple for even a second. Turns out this dude was a full-blown adventurer from another tower. So she was brand new to the whole crew, and he jumped in to help her, which is how they ended up meeting. Maya couldn't stop smiling and blurted that she was ecstatic. She'd barely waited a few days before her level, and rank shot up so fast it felt unreal. Then superiority crawled into her bones, and she swore she'd be better than everyone, until one day he started dragging her down to the middle level of the tower. Nowhere felt safe, an ordinary floor where monsters hunted, and the guy slammed her to the wall, pinning her there so she couldn't wriggle free. If she didn't do what he ordered, he'd ditch her right there. Maya warned him that this was a place where survival was basically impossible without help. There was no atmosphere to save her, and rage tore through her as she fought back with desperate strength. Maya froze so badly it felt like her body wouldn't budge, and she truly thought he was about to end her, until he burst in right then, and the villain took a brutal baton smack right on the head. She blurted that the soldier was a lizard man, and right then and there, she couldn't even square up with captains, let alone someone at the soldier's level. The girl kept insisting she'd jammed her hands over her ears and swore she was about to die. Then, out of nowhere, a tight hug crushed her fears, and it was Rita. The girl blurted out an apology for showing up so late. It looked like that man had been hitting other adventurers the same way, like he'd learned every dirty trick from the guild's shady playbook too, so she reported it. But when the victim wouldn't talk, she turned to chaotic explosive flower to shut him down. Rita shot a quick smile and apologized for being late, then thanked her sister, because once she joined the team, they saved her and she finally jumped in with them. She dropped to her knees and swore that, in the end, nothing even happened. She thought she could go right back to being an adventurer with zero trouble, but she's terrified of men. Yeah, she's better now, no doubt about it. But the second she sees the men, it all slams back, and she can't even breathe like that incident is still happening. Now she can finally talk to guys right when her friends are there, but if it's just her alone, she can't. Thinking about it alone, panic shoots through her. Maya asked for it to be just the two of them, and when everything was fine, she grinned so wide and said yes. Because they'd already conquered so much together, and he's an adventurer everyone trusts, even his sister. She blurted out, "I'm sorry," but it was a total lie. Maybe if he finally stood up, she'd unleash a scream so loud it'd shake the room, and if she hadn't had that drink, she wouldn't have dared say a single thing in the dining room. Leon tried again and again, failing every time. Then he finally stared at her with bright excitement and thought, maybe now's the moment he tells her something. And right then, Maya blared Leon's name loud as thunder. She yells that they need to hug tight, and then it clicks. She doesn't just want strength, she demands it, smashing through her fear of men and forcing herself to get stronger. She said she had to, so she begged for forgiveness, but only he could grant it, and that didn't mean he'd say yes. She'd understand if he refused, and the wild part, she still managed to slip into his room today. Leon had just slid up to her, and she yelped so loud it echoed. Then the cheerful guy grinned and asked what he could do, and the girl snapped with pure embarrassment. What is it?" She fumbled her bedspread and blurts, "Of course," and Leon tells her, "If you're scared, just say it." Then the guy steps in close and snaps, "Look here." He jerked back and screamed, terrified that he was right there, right in her face. While Maya spun away from him, Leon, on the other hand, leaned in closer. He warned her that if she wanted him to have fun, Maya shot back that she wanted that too. Maya swallowed hard, blushing like crazy, and asked if Leon really meant it. Then she gushed that he was so kind because he wasn't pushing her at all. She said the pressure was only a little, like not even worth worrying about. And with total confidence, Leon said it had to be done, because for her this was the kind of obstacle she'd have to fight through. She blurted out that she was sorry, confused about what she even needed to do, and Leon told her to take the first step, hold hands. It was fine, she just needed his hand. And when Leon grabbed it, he murmured that it was burning warm in his palm. She laughed and said it was probably the drinks. But then the guy pressed for one thing and told her to close her eyes, so she did. He leaned in and kissed her fast, and she burst into a bright blush. He grinned and asked what her first kiss was like, and she stammered, completely lost, that she was with a man. He gulped tightly, then blurted, trembling, "Everything's fine, right?" But the girl broke into tears and confessed she let that man touch her. Then she swiped it away with a shaky, "It's okay, we can go all the way." He stared at her, practically buzzing with excitement, and she blurted that she was begging for forgiveness. So Leon shot back, asking if she was more worried about him, and she nodded hard. Yes, she was. She couldn't even believe her own idea of getting used to men, felt so weird. So he leaned in, all curious, and asked if coming this far already wasn't enough. Leon swallowed his nerves and eyed her face, then awkwardly blurted, "What is it?" The girl whipped around and told tensely, "We can head to the tower now." Leon figured it was obvious, but the tower doesn't care about time. Night, dawn, it all means the same thing. Monsters pour through non-stop, and that makes it deadly. So yeah, just trust me. At the end of the adventure, right when guild stuff wrapped up, it was always working time, usually a little before sunrise and right after sunset. From now till the break of day, they'll only take fresh supplies and search requests, no exceptions. Maya hurried up to the guy and shot out an apology for showing up late. She beamed up at him and blurted out, asking how she was feeling. Then her gait suddenly looked clumsy and off. Maya forced a shaky smile and admitted it still hurt a bit, but she insisted she was okay. He said the expedition request from the 21st floor got approved, then told them to stay sharp. If they don't make it back before the calendar day flips, they'll be barred from the city until morning. He stepped outside, and the guy with the huge grin promised that Lydia and the others would meet here in the morning, 4 whole hours for the expedition, while she shot back that they'd already had enough. He hauled himself up to the 21st floor, and Maya demanded, "Will you treat me?" But the guild guy snapped that the rules ban wound treatment from the tower. He broke the rules anyway, and when Maya said her application got approved, she left no room for doubt. Everything was fine. On the 25th floor, Leon jabbed at the hallway and told them the route to the top was right there. They had to move. Maya shot back with fearless confidence, "Follow me." They halted at a wall, and she swore the door was right here. Maya pressed her forehead to the wall and told the guy he attacked her right here, then spun toward him and asked, "Can you hug me right here?" They smiled at each other. "Okay, what's inside, so you'll do it fast." Leon snapped that it took her a little while to warm up, even if she hadn't been totally clueless until recently. Maya admitted this was her first time with a guy. But honestly, it freaked her out the moment they stepped onto this floor. Because the second she saw where they were headed, memories came crashing back, and she wrapped her arms around herself just to steady her nerves. She told you it was brutal, terrifying, and worst of all, humiliating. Then she grinned and said she'd actually invited him to move past it, and when he begged for forgiveness, she turned around and used him again. Everything seemed fine, until Maya flashed that smile and muttered, "Thanks," like she'd already decided she was going to do this to him, because once she set her mind, what happened before just didn't matter anymore. Thinking about doing it with him beside her swallowed every bad memory she'd lived through here. Because then he could finally look her in the eyes, and that guy just kept listening, fully locked in. He blurted that he'd do it right now, then swept her into a hug, and Maya erupted, screaming that everything felt totally different. He grinned and told her it was all the magic of support, that the feelings hit harder than before. Maya shook her head, then laughed, saying it was awesome. Leon yanked her into a tighter hug and promised she'd drown out every bad memory. Then the girl shrieked at the top of her lungs, and he immediately feared it meant the worst. He grabbed his stomach and said, "This is how healing feels." He cured the girl, and Maya sagged out, breathing weak, admitting she truly thought she was going to die. Then he said he needed forgiveness because the feelings had surged and the pain had turned razor-sharp. With that knowing smile, she tells us to keep doing only the nice stuff. Leon grins and says, "If it hurts, I'll fix you." Then she laughs, "Come on, everything's in place," and announces the sage's time is activated. With her in his arms on his lap, he hustled through the corridors, grinning, and told Maya to wake up. She blinked, yawned, then erupted in excitement and shouted what had happened. With a bright smile, they stood before the portal on the 21st floor, right on time, because it was finally time to go back. The girl burst out excitedly that she was asking for forgiveness, right in front of him. Cheapishly that she was sorry again. She asked why he was alone before coming here. Leon grinned and said he felt so good he couldn't bring himself to wake her up. She snapped that this was a complete failure, and she awkwardly blurted it out just so he'd actually listen. Then she jumped into the middle, asking what was so amazing, but her eyes kept flicking back to the worry in her head. He stared at the sage's hard-earned blessing, then rerouted the support magic and crushed her in the tightest hug ever. So tight she said he was sweet enough to catch the taste for it. Maya snapped, "That's enough, time to head back." He gave the items over to the guild, stepped outside, and Leon practically bounced with excitement, asking if she was truly happy with him. She ducked her head, looking sheepish, and admitted that then. She leaned on support magic, but lizards still messed her up. Plus, when other soldiers showed up, fear hit her hard. Yet somehow, with him, she stayed weirdly calm. Back then, she swore the boy had cast a spell on her, like all her warmth came from that support. And when she looked back, her heart just melted because he didn't only help his sister and the guys. He even stepped in for Lydia and the side, and together, him and his sister made it happen. She smiled, sure he was the kind of guy her sister could count on, so she trusted him with everything, but he gave her nothing but trouble, and when he told her no, Maya snapped. "I'm leaving, thanks for everything," and promised she'd say more. Leon smiled back, promising he'd follow through, and it snapped him right back to that talk with Lydia. Their dream wasn't just to be heroes, it was to conquer the Yunu Tower for good. He said yes without hesitation, and Maya pushed him to bring his sister along, because she wasn't the kind of adventurer who has everything already handled in this city, and if he truly wanted to be a hero, he'd have to forge his strength first. The girl bowed so low, she nearly hit the floor and blurted out that she begged him to take her sister along, while Leon just waved her off with a grin and shot back. "So what are you doing?" With a grin, she told him to think it over, then come back with her answer. And the moment he nodded, she waved wildly and yelled that she'd see him tomorrow. She bolted off so fast Leon barely had time to get a word out. The whole team huddled in the guild, and Rita's eyes snapped to Maya. She demanded to know why she was late, and Maya just grinned and apologized, saying it was only a small thing. Leon told them, "Don't stress, let's grab something to eat first, then we'll pick our next move." And right then Maya yelled for him to stop. They asked what they could look at first, and Rita blinked in shock at how weird Lydia sounded. Lydia snapped that it didn't even add up. Then Maya practically screamed that she was begging for exactly that. The guild staff told them they could finally roam the 50th floor, so Leon blurted out, shocked, "Why hasn't anything changed?" And the girl smirked, saying it was only because they'd added one more high-level specialist to the mix. Everyone's eyes snapped to Maya. She couldn't help but grin, and she blurted that she'd gone to the guild first thing that morning and switched her class to an assassin. Maya blurts out that she's only just hit level 35 and still feels nervous. Then she proudly snaps back, "We can't just stay put if we want level 99, so we've got to grind those high-level professions fast." Maybe she was right, but something felt off. Leon said that even if she became an assassin, at level 1 he'd still be basically the same as a scout. Maya insisted she'd already told them that. Lydia cut in, saying maybe she was just late. With a huge grin, she marched up to the tower and powered up to level 10, and Lydia just nodded like, "I get it. Even when you've got a top-tier profession, if your level is low, the grind shoots by way faster." And yeah, the gap between a level 10 assassin and a level 45 scout isn't just stats, it's reputation, too. Rita snapped in disgust that she'd marched into the tower alone, then boom, a girl showed up and claimed, "I helped you." What? Leon spun around and spotted two girls, totally stunned, because they looked exactly like the magician and the priest from that insane flower bomb explosion. One of them said they'd come to get into the tower while the wounds were still being poured, and the other snapped, "We're right on time." What? He said it was a perfect opening. Then the pastor came roaring out that they'd just landed some serious, high-level connections, and Rita gasped, "Wait, when did you even find the time?" Rita beamed and said this new generation would soon take their place. Then she snapped that they hadn't grown up yet and demanded they hash out the next move in the dining room. She told Maya she was grateful, and Maya brushed it off, no thanks needed. Now the moment is here, they've got to shoulder the name of that chaotic, explosive flower. When the guy strode past the girls, Maya clocked it instantly and met his eyes with total confidence. Even the archmage and the pastor straight up bowed, and Leon couldn't believe what he was seeing. He dropped into the seat and tore into his food, while Leon confessed he couldn't shake his worry about Maya's new job. Then Rita pressed him for his take on whether they should stretch out the schedule for their expedition. Lydia said, "Yeah, swinging makes it work best on the 49th floor, and once we step onto the 50th, the return portal will kick in perfectly, so nothing will go wrong." He tore up from his seat and roared that they made their choice. Then the guy stared at the girls, realizing this expedition would drag on for 5 days and 4 nights. To chase their shot at the 50th floor, they ditched the usual grind and kicked off from the 41st, right when Maya, fresh off changing classes, suddenly got a whole lot stronger. The expedition ran perfectly, and they even crushed the first day early. The expedition finally rolled in, and Maya grinned. Before she even realized it, exhaustion hit. She fell asleep like a rock, and Leon mused that the day before yesterday she kept pushing the expedition right through to the new day. She kept arguing over and over, insisting everything still happened. Then that morning she sprinted to switch classes and swing into it, right there, where she launched a brand new expedition with a brutal schedule. He stormed up in front of her and barked that something was coming, right around the corner. And yep, that lizard was a general leading soldiers, because Lydia couldn't believe it when she realized she could actually feel them from that far away. It was mind-blowing. The girl said she owed it all to the magic of support, and Leon shot back that it was the class change. Rita leaned in, asking if she was okay, and Maya insisted everything was fine. She just depends on her sister a lot. The lizards came crawling in, and she shrieked, "Maya, you can count on me." Then she dared the monsters to attack her and hit the provocation button, clearing the beast herself. Leon saw she was doing well, so he went after the lizards next. Those things had snapped and kept shoving with zero control. Maya got them through it fast. Lydia said everything went smooth for once, and Maya bragged that they'd just saved their boss's fucking strength. So Leon figured they'd keep rolling forward without a hitch. By the fourth bout of laziness, Maya had already hit level 18. Lydia nudged up a bit, but Rita's level just wouldn't move. Maybe the tower is getting so brutal that even leveling up starts fighting back. The expedition finally rolled back in. Leon's eyes lit up as he faced his crew and yelled, "We're moving out!" And by the 50th floor, just a little before they fully took it. He's boosting everyone with magic enhancement. Right now they're crashing the top floor, and he supercharged Lydia's physical damage, sharpened Rita's perception, and hardened Maya's defenses. He stared into the gap and realized the last floor was the Royal Tower, the 50th, and then there it was, a royal goblin with the Cobalt King right beside him. A grin flashed like it had been ages since she'd tangled with the royal class, and Rita blared, "This is my first time." Lydia snapped back, "Mine too." King strode up beside the Lizard King, stood right in front of everyone and bared their plan. Hit fast, strike hard, and take people down before they could even react. Everything was going great, until you realize the royal class doesn't just intimidate with raw power, it commands with real leadership, and still, they have to stay sharp, because werewolves hit harder when they're alone. With her hammer up like a shield, she barreled into the fight and screamed that they'd cut down the weaklings first. Then Lydia lunged forward and yelled for everyone to get ready. But it still snapped the attack aside. She shrieked that he dodged it. Leon figured the next move, tactically, was the Cobalt King, yet the truth was, the weakest of the royal lot was the Goblin King. He stared the monster down and kept yelling that the real play is to take out the Lizard King, because that sneaky bastard can't be trusted. Then Leon answered by blasting him again and again with thunderclaps. She crept right up behind the monster and slammed it with a killing skill for a fatal strike. Then as the other boss charged at her, Leon whipped out a thunderbolt shot and dropped him. Lightning slammed toward him, but the monster snapped up his shield to block it. Then Leon yelled, "It's fine," and lunged in with a sword strike, only for the creature to twist away again while Maya plunged a knife straight into its side. Screamed in agony and crashed to the ground. Then Lydia lunged at another monster and ripped its head off, while Rita kept battling a fresh threat right there behind her. She hauled her hammer up and yelled for him to grab it. Then Lydia lunged straight into the fray, screaming that the armor had a hole, landing a hit on the monster. But it barely did anything, and she stammered out that it was just a blow. A hammer slammed down, and this time the monster couldn't hold out anymore. Maya said he was a tough nut to crack, and Leon and Maya just grinned at what they'd done. After the fight, Lydia burst into loud laughter and boomed that they'd just crushed it. An absolute win. And that's how their final day in the dungeon ended. They filled their plates and shot straight to the dining room. Then the whole team piled into the table, grabbed their mugs of drinks, and erupted in cheers, screaming that they'd earned every bit of this celebration. They fell in with the group, and the girls told them the truth. There are only 2 of them total. They could never get the chance to challenge on the top floor, and somehow it all felt unfair, like the rules were stacked against them. Lee said basically, "Yeah, we saw this coming," and Lydia admitted she was a little pissed. But Leon stayed weirdly calm, and the guy snapped back, "It's because we're one step from winning." Leon managed to take the tower with 2 separate groups, which is a win for sure. So now maybe the 3 of them won't clash again next time. But Leon admitted it was brutal and tough. Rita suggested the tired mistress might want to team up with the incomparable Ultimate Determination team, and the girl agreed, saying it sounded like a great idea. She grinned, thinking their leaders could pull off anything, then urged the princess and Leon to press on right then. Lydia answered with a bright nod. She'd love to become a hero. With a grin, that's fine, because when their leader finally turns into a hero, they'll be proud as hell. Her friends, though, warned that the commander-ranked one, isn't a ladder you're supposed to stop climbing. Rita flashed a sad little smile and shrugged that the hero wasn't actually so bad, then downed her drink in a hurry and slammed the mug on the table with a brutal bang. Because, in her eyes, that chaotic exploding flower is the best thing ever. Now it was Maya's team's turn to strike, because Maya clocked the enemy's movements and she snapped back, all fired up. Of course. She shoved herself out of her seat and blared that today they'd finally rest, tomorrow they'd slam into a strategic meeting, and the day after that, when the time hit, they'd march straight into the tower. Princess and Leon traded smiles like they owned the blame. When Leon grinned and said, "Yep, it was at our expense," Lydia answered with total confidence, "Of course." She took his hand and told Leon that if they ever needed more help, they should hit him up. Then she paused, grabbed the treat in her head, and rushed off because she can't stay. Maya awkwardly said she knew it. Then she had no words left. She apologized for how weird the conversation got, and Leon quickly told her not to worry so she wouldn't overthink it. Lydia cut in with a bright smile and told her to lock in on the full strategy right now. They were shocked for a second, then grinned wide and said, "It's totally fine." The three girls jumped up, thanked him for everything, and said they had to run. Leon stormed out of the guild, and Lydia let out a shaky breath, saying she was beat. Leon grinned at her and told her to lean in, then asked what she was planning to do next. Lee insisted they had to hash everything out properly, just the two of them, and the girls snapped, "Can we grab dinner somewhere today? What do you think?" Leon said it was totally fine, but then asked where. If he really knew the soaring dragon palace. Then when night rolled in, the couple slipped into a breathtaking spot. Leon swore it was the soaring dragon palace, the fanciest hotel in Queen City, where even commoners can get in. It's set in the so-called aristocrat district, where the rich crowd the streets and dress like royalty, totally unlike the guild folks who gather in the middle. He snatched a brand new suit and felt it was made for him, then rushed to a random store and bolted inside, all tense and on edge. He stormed up to the receptionist, rushed out an apology and said he had a seat reserved. Then the girl asked for his name. He grinned and told her, "Leon." A warm smile lit up her face as Mr. Leon greeted her, then told her he'd show his ID card. So he handed over his guild card, and she thanked him before sending him straight up in the elevator to the 10th floor. He burst out of the elevator and sprinted to the 10th floor, then stepped out, followed the directions from the man, and walked straight into a gorgeous restaurant. Leon hurried to the table and found his companion already there, then slid into his seat and blurted out, "Sorry for the wait." Lydia grinned and said, "No worries, I just got here." A girl in pure shock, then she turned and looked gorgeous. Lydia caught it, burst into a giggle, and the guy stumbled out, awkward as ever, "Thanks a lot for the invitation." He let out a breath and finally said it was just the two of them, time to start the research. Leon nodded and said, "That's the deal." The girl hesitated, insisting she'd rather sit down and talk things through with him first. He just had to wonder, now that the two of them were set on this path, were they really going to start trading in the sage's time? They'll have to hug once every hour, sure, but right now, neither of them has even spelled out what they're actually trying to do. Lydia grinned and waved her head like, "All right, we have to talk, really talk." The girl agreed, but she insisted first we're switching topics. She wanted to clue him in on her plans, and he shot back, "What plans?" So Lydia answered with a steady breath that she'd map out exactly how the research would move forward, and she wanted to dive into the details with him. So tell me, could he really get what she meant perfectly? Lydia thinks it all has to be spelled out, and Leon just said, "Yeah, I understand." But then doubt hit him. If he didn't back Lydia's side, would the whole group fall apart? Leon said he'd smuggled snacks from their place, and Lydia shrugged. "We'll hash out the details later. Right now, dig in." And Leon just nodded, "I'm good." She said, "Just let it hinge on one unmatched, ultimate decision," then leaned in and demanded to know what it meant to fully seize the royal tower. Leon just stared and asked, "What?" He laughed with a grin and told them Leon just wanted to clink glasses together, but Lydia snapped, "No way, there aren't many glasses in a place like this," and Leon sheepishly admitted that he'd. Leon shoved a plate right in front of the couple, then tore into his food like he hadn't eaten in days. He was starving. Lydia, though, took her time, slicing it into tiny bites and chewing slow and careful, while the guy just watched her with pure, non-stop excitement. Leon said, "Empty. Just like that, all that's left are the glasses with drinks." Lydia nodded and admitted, "Yeah, but with this many people around, it's kind of awkward." Carol couldn't contain her excitement. "Can I go to the room if you don't mind talking there?" Leon blinked in surprise at the idea of a room in this hotel. Lydia nodded, "Yep, that's exactly right." Leon let out a breath, convinced she was inviting him inside, like they could finally talk in private, no noisy onlookers, no more complications. Leon stepped into this huge room and gaped. Everything looked brand new and gorgeous, like a slice of luxury hotel heaven, and the shock hit him hard. This is it, the number. Now he couldn't stop thinking, how much is this per person? She handed him a tray and asked if he wanted to sit and grab a glass, and Leon stared at her in shock before laughing. "Of course, let's clink our glasses." Lydia downed a few drinks, and then she told the girl one of her brothers was an adventurer. So Leon leaned in and asked if it was Mr. Bardo, and she smirked that he was insanely well-informed, though he was famous, too. Bartolomeo wasn't just some nobody. He was the son of Jim Queen, the commander of the fearless Heavenly 710000 Fights Party. And honestly, if you mention his name, there isn't a single person who doesn't already know exactly who he is. Bardo's brother never got a single ounce of help from their family, but he still carved his way to success as a lone adventurer. And that girl, she's roaring with pride over him. Leon asked straight up if from what he knew he'd be coming back, and Lydia snapped back with a confident, "Yeah." The guy nodded like he felt the same way, and then admitted the reason was his father, and Lydia cut in, partly. They lost one of their longtime members a while back, and it hit him hard. So now they're hunting for a new member, but then word lands from her father, and she jumps on the chance. She nodded, grinning as she told her headstrong dad was nothing like her brother. Then she revealed he squeezed every ounce of the Cuban family power, and Leon shot back that it sounded like she'd just up and rushed straight for the tower. They flexed their wealth and clout, loaded the family with top-tier gear, and paid a fortune to hire the best handymen money could buy. Leon shot back with total confidence, saying, "Yep, I'm a father for sure," and Lydia smiled as if he'd answered so fast. Lydia claimed her father's success was the reason, but she snapped back that just because you're successful doesn't mean everyone's suddenly cheering. You know she's right. People see it as fancy, aristocratic fun, but others recoil at the thought of their father's actions, so the girl just stared down, heart heavy. Being an adventurer is brutal, especially when you're trying to live up to hero. You burn through everything you've got, you give it your absolute all, and you still have no clue if you'll reach your goal, because that uncertainty is exactly what makes a hero. Like Mr. Bardo, he came to this all on his own. And sure, some people could have played the hero, but he believes they fought as hard as they possibly could. He clasped his hands and spoke through clenched tension. Pulling off something like that takes real guts, and adventurers just aren't trained to keep pushing their limits like that every single time. Her father used every last thing he had without flinching from any bad reputation. Lydia listened to him like every word was a torch lighting the way, and he swore this was the right path for any true adventurer. A smile finally cracked across her face like the weight of a stone had dropped out of her soul, because her thoughts about her father and brother matched perfectly, and knowing they saw things the same way made everything feel right again. He blurted out an apology, saying he had no right to touch her family, and Lydia snapped, "What are you even talking about?" Because she wanted to drag every last detail into the light. The guy stared like he finally understood, and now he'll have to face two realities. First, she said, he needs to help her family. First, they'd boost the staff on site, and then load up on consumables in massive quantities to make sure everything hits hard. Leon said he got it. If the need pops up later, they'll pull in the top adventurers and even stack the ranks with top-tier freelance help. It hit him so hard it felt like a total curse. If he uses her family's powers to get close to her, he won't dodge the spotlight, and he's almost guaranteed to end up notorious. He smirked so hard he could practically point. Right there, the red magician sprawled on the princess's neck, and he just knew they'd say something like that, which cracks him up so much he can't stop laughing. Lydia blurted out that, yeah, he could handle it. Then the guy shot back, "No problem." Turns out he's nothing without her, and he's already resigned. She then screamed at the top of her lungs that she was. He said with total confidence that Leon was exactly what they needed, and that he better think this through carefully. The girl even insisted he was the only wise man in the world, and honestly, she wasn't wrong. Leon stammered that to become a sage, he'd need her help. Then Lydia snapped back that it didn't have to be her. Lydia said it like it was obvious. Because she and everyone else already knew each other's opinions, she didn't just talk, she showed what she could really do. Rita, Maya, any woman at all. With a smile like her father's, she gobbles up everything she finds, and Leon thought he could do the same, so he took whatever he could and nailed it. So she had to believe his skills, and the power the nobility put behind him would carry her, and in return he'd hand over his sage powers. That was the deal. "That's why it's such a profitable deal," he said. "That's what it means." "Got it," I nodded. "We had a great discussion," Lydia said, and she thanked him with real gratitude. Then Leon stood up and shut it down. "I'll leave it at that." Leon fired back, stunned when he realized she wasn't talking about anything else. She said, "If we're done here, then I guess it's your turn to head back." And the girl pressed him on what he was supposed to return to. Leon swallowed his embarrassment, finally catching why she'd brought it up, because he could see her point clear as day. Then he grinned and said they were both building strength in each other. She nodded, sure of it. "That's exactly why we met at the guild," Leon added. The girl gasped, "I can," and stared at him with sharp displeasure, like, "Seriously, you think you just need the power of a sage?" Leon hesitated, then snapped back, "No, you're wrong." They snapped it back loud and clear, "Still wrong." And then they shoved their glasses onto the table, sat across from each other, and for a few brutal minutes neither of them said a word, just stared. They went into all the details, swore they'd handled the werewolf together, then headed back home. Right when Ryan called in that his father was missing, and she felt like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water on her. She'd already said it, she was ready to become an adventurer, and honestly it didn't even throw her off. Lydia looked way calmer now. She whips her gaze to the past and remembers the one thing that mattered most: Leon, the red magician who saved her life. Right in the middle of their brawl with the Goblin Lord, he burst in to save the day. Then helped him slip free from the werewolf's grip, and Leon wasn't some wise sage at all. He was a red magician. At that time, he'd already been forged by the sage's skills, no longer just a red magician. Lydia flat out said he still wasn't strong enough to resist back then, not strong enough at all. She bolted, but he didn't drop. He moved straight to a safe zone, because Leon was calling out that Rita and the others were down there, and Lydia snapped that he never dragged anyone else into this, so if we're going to talk about. She couldn't stop thinking about Leon. He blushed hard and burst out that Lydia had brought it up. So Lydia leaned in and asked what he thought he even needed a sage for. She smiled bright as she left, begging him to believe she wouldn't come back, until Leon snapped, "No way." And the girl pressed him again, only for him to admit he didn't trust a single word she said. She grabbed his head and yanked him toward her, then pulled him into a fierce hug and told him she had just one wish. Lydia wanted Leon. She blurted out right away, making sure Leon could hear her heartbeat hammering like crazy. Then he leaned in close and caught every single thump of how wildly fast it was racing. Carol blurted, all fired up, that it was because she was an aristocrat, and she's got this insane habit of keeping her face perfectly still no matter what's happening around her. But there's one thing she can't smother. When they finally tore free from the werewolf, he headed to the safe zone instead of dropping down to the floor below, all because he respected her wishes. And still, there was a hidden motive driving him. He stared straight into Lydia's eyes and blurted out that he wanted her. Couldn't think of anything else, couldn't have handled it any other way, but he went for it anyway. Years later, he still remembers she was his first, and how he made her cry. She called it a shaky moment between life and death, her very first time, and she couldn't make sense of her feelings, just got overwhelmed, confused, and burst into tears she didn't even control. Lydia shot her head up and told everyone she'd managed to win over Sage Leon as a night princess. No ordinary woman's feelings. These were Lydia's all the way. He showed up right in the middle of her fight, called her name, and instantly, boom, he stole her heart. Then he kissed her and swept her off her feet. Lately, the guy convinced himself everything was set. Then the girl eyed him, all shy and uncertain, and asked about the time of the sage. He told her he wanted more with Lydia. She shrugged and said he could do whatever he wanted, and he smirked back like, "Then I'm doing exactly that." Leon finally climbed out of the tub, and the girl swept into the room with a smile. Food served. She offered Lydia a bite, they grabbed a quick snack, and then the guy leaned in and told Lydia to listen to her. Lydia's anger flared, and the girl stared at him like he'd just shocked her, then blurted, "What?" The guy answered that she clearly wasn't in the mood, and Lydia fired back that, apparently, her face was giving everything away. She fumed, but then insisted she wasn't mad, not really. "Sure," she admitted, "there are a few things I don't like." The guy lit up and blurted that this was what it meant, like he'd finally figured it out and couldn't wait to prove he understood. It'd be so much better if she'd told him, because he doesn't get what she's talking about at all. Lydia smiled and said she just wanted to clear things up before it got any further. They hurriedly asked if they could use her magic like always, right here outside the tower, and Leon said, "Yeah, we do the same, only in a safe zone." Lydia told Leon that the safe zone and stepping outside the tower are worlds apart. And when Leon asked if that's really how it works, she said that even high-level priests and archmages could use magic, so long as they stay in a safe area. Lydia leaned in and said, "Look, people are still figuring out how to use magic freely outside the tower, but there's stuff you'll never hear in public, because it's only accessible through live magic." She said the dream is simple, white and black magic, unleashed beyond the tower. Yet that's exactly why guilds and aristocrats must stop pretending they're heroes and thinking they can do it better for humanity. Asked what it was, and the girl fumbled out that it was exactly what she'd said. So he should rethink bringing in support members, because it has to be someone he truly trusts. She demanded to know if anyone else knew about it, and the guy squirmed and admitted he'd messed up. Then she pressed him for every other girl he'd ever hugged, because this mattered more than anything. Tell him he's hugging Rita and Maya, and Lydia's like, "If it's them, I can finally breathe easy." Then she yells at him to shut up again, but He shook them off and said no, then kept his real power hidden, showing only magic with Maya in the tower, until she demanded to know if anyone else was around, and the guy snapped that he was still with Amelia. She works as a masseuse in a salon, and Lydia grilled her about it, because he insisted she was the same partner he had back when he first switched his class over to Sage. They'd barely met, but it was already whispering. Maybe she was his secret lover. Leon choked out the words she was saying, totally awkward. Turns out the guildmaster was the one who hauled him here. Sure, it's a massage parlor, but not in the normal way. He'd been using magic, Leon admitted, and even then he didn't tell her what the sage could truly do. Lydia stared in shock, because she'd never imagined magic could be practiced anywhere outside the tower. Lydia finally said she agreed with him. The guildmaster claimed she knows how to stay silent, and Lydia shot back, "Sure, but don't spread it either." Leon nodded like he got it, then leaned in and asked what exactly she didn't like about the others. What was wrong? Wasn't that what guys do? Her father had tons of women besides her mom, and Leon pressed her for what she didn't like. He applied the cleansing routine before bed, and Leon told her he didn't want her to wake up to something unpleasant. Lydia thanked him for it, genuinely grateful. It felt like they were throwing her away like trash, like someone had just labeled her dirty. Leon said everything she said made her happy even so. Soon enough, they'd storm the tower, and then they'd have to hug like it's all finally over. Lydia admitted a little sheepishly that he was right, while Leon smirked and said anything could happen on the mission. Smile and nod, this is why he always thinks ahead and cleans everything up before anyone notices. Lydia mumbled, embarrassed, "Yeah, that's just how it is." Then the girl grabbed a mug and took a long sip of tea. He slammed that right onto the table and demanded, "So when's he finally going out to explore?" Leon hesitated, then muttered, I don't know yet." Leon snapped back that, even if they were racing the clock, the exploration wouldn't kick off until tomorrow. So Lydia stepped in and asked if he wouldn't mind letting them hug. "Come on," he jolted awake, yanked his gaze to the window, and Leon went, "So that's how it ended all the way till morning." No recon forces for today. Lydia finally started to stir, slow and sleepy. He smiled and said, "Good morning." Then Lydia yelped in shock. She couldn't hold back her excitement as she blurted out, "Did you really perform the cleansing?" With that wide grin still on his face, the moment the sage's time ended, he became a red magician again, ready to do everything he could to cleanse her body. Lydia waved it off, saying she was fine and didn't mind at all, and Leon stared at her, asking what it was. He leaned in with an excited grin and shot back, "Nothing, seriously." Then she tossed him her robe and asked what he could do. Leon shook his head, said it was fine since he was using purification, and insisted it was for the best. She tossed on a bathrobe and grinned, saying she'd go grab a shower. Leon just waved it off, claiming he was fine, because he figured coming in then would be way too early. And the guy leans in and asks them to explore tomorrow, so she grins and says, "Yeah, once we're ready, we'll check out of the hotel." Leon steps outside and his thoughts hit like weight. Leon decided to hit the streets and take a walk around the city, wondering if he had to grab supplies, or anything else, for tomorrow. He spent the entire evening shopping, came back to the guild at night, and then, finally, the mission day was here. When the guy finally met Leon, he blurted out that he was late and apologized, and the girl practically burst with excitement, saying, "No way, I showed up early." She shoved it into the bag her assistant was clutching and asked, "Can you hold on to this for me?" He blinked in shock, but he didn't say no. Lydia shot back that it was a tent, an expandable pocket of space, built to block every thrust and muffle sound like a vault, so they could finally push their exploration forward without fear of what might be out there. He said he wanted her to go easy, and Lydia shot back, "Yes, of course." Then he turned to Leon and ordered, "Make sure you take care of this lady." The guy grinned and shouted, "Got it, I understand." He burst into the guild, scanned the room, and realized Miriam wasn't there today. Lydia shot him a worried look and asked if something was wrong, but the guy just shook his head, nothing at all. They swear there are two goals: climb your reputation by killing monsters and delivering lost goods to jack up your ranking, then push to earn the right to hit the 50th floor as fast as humanly possible. He tried to claim he cared more about the others. Then they finally reached the dungeon door, and Leon demanded what they were doing here, only for Lydia to answer with total confidence that yes. The reporter rushed toward the 41st floor, and Leon swore the whole operation was built around two big targets: powering up Peerless Will, leveling Lydia to 45, and pushing Leon to level 4. Lydia stopped mid-step, grabbed his attention, and told him, "Listen, because if you want your sage skill to level up, this is exactly what we start with." Leon snapped back that they wouldn't actually pull it off here, because up on the 41st floor, it's tough for anyone to see what's happening in their eyes. She asked if they'd be safe there, and Leon laid it all out in detail. Yes. Lydia couldn't help but ask what Leon had cooked up for a tent like this, and Leon just smirked. If someone barged in and saw it twitching, they'd have no clue what was happening inside. Leon said it with a sheepish grin. Whatever it was, Lydia needed to get used to this. Because while Lydia would soon push the level up, Leon instantly turned the tables and maxed out the difficulty from the very start, level after level. He blurted out he was begging for forgiveness, and it was weighing her down. So Lydia shot back with total confidence that he had nothing to apologize for because she'd been ready from the start. She grabbed his hand and told him, besides. Cheaply, she made it clear she hadn't said no. Leon snapped his gaze to her in shock. The guy crushed Dee in a tight hug and blurted that Lydia was incredible, and the girl lit up with a smile back. Hold on to her tight. This has to be done if Leon wants to become a sage. Finish what you started. Leon snapped back that he would. After Lydia hugged the monster, she grinned, swung her weapon, and smashed it. Meanwhile, Leon battled a swarm of smaller monsters. On the 43rd floor, he flexed his strength and grinned, saying there weren't any other adventurers here. Just a little time to breathe, so they could take a break. Lydia shot back that she was totally fine. Sage's time to act was over, so they slipped into a safe spot, pitched an absolutely massive tent, and finally let out a tired, relieved breath. They tore out of the room to trigger the Sage's power again, and Leon actually believed they'd hit the 49th floor in just half a day, before they kept battling right to the very end of the Sage's regime. That day flipped everything. He felt the power surge, then boom. A water blade, magic mastery, an earth blade, a wind blade, and then more wind. Sage's regime was in full swing when Lydia burst out, calling the guy the second he froze in place, asking what he was doing there, and Leon snapped back that he'd just raised his level. With a grin, Leon blurted that it was awesome. He'd just mastered a brand new magic, the blade spell system, and he couldn't believe he actually pulled it off. 7 attributes: earth, water, fire, darkness, and spiritual power. Then they get fused into tougher, more complex ones, and the way you grab them depends on who's got the others, so the girl insists Leon loves thunder, and after that, the next holder can be anyone except fire. And he snapped back, no, you're wrong. Then it hit. The blade spell was finally in his hands, soaked in every simple attribute, and the girl gasped as she realized he'd reached full mastery. But one of the very first skills he picked up in Sage mode was, look, is this even a bad thing? Maya shrieked it was just unbelievable, and Leon shot back, thanks. He admitted the truth. He didn't just learn magic, he mastered one crucial skill too, and it let him stretch the Sage mode for longer. Bright red, sheepish as hell, she admitted they had to check it out, and then blurted all awkward if they could hug right now. Leon shot back, yeah, and just like that, it was happening. Lydia barreled into the monsters, slashing with a blazing fire blade and a sharp water blade, and wiped the enemies out in a blink. Bradley said once you reach a certain stat, power just spikes. Lydia snapped back that Leon's winning because he's drilling the opponent's weak spots, and she can't stop wishing someone could hit every attribute at once, non-stop. So yeah, he's got multiple arias. When you crank the level up, aria slashes the weight until magic comes back. But if that's true, then the Sage mode's clock runs out for good. He blurted out that the Sage's rule was finally done. Lydia snapped back that 2 hours had already ticked by since activation. Leon insisted the time had jumped another 2, and then, without even thinking, he pushed for the study to keep going until you realize he always gets lost in it. They slid up beside him and demanded they run it back. Leon admitted, red-faced, that he did. Then they clung to each other tight, and just like that, the conditions snapped into place and Sage mode kicked off. A pack of brutal monsters surged forward, and Leon barked, "I'm leaving the small ones to you." While the girl stood her ground and yelled, totally confident, "I'll take care of everything." She promised she'd end them fast. Even if he goes for the Orc Lord's weak spot with an air blade, 2 of them are still more than enough to slam him down. So he decided this round he'd unleash 2 magic strikes, one with fire, one with wind, then yelled, "I'm summoning a fire blade and a wind blade." They linked up and charged straight at the monster. Before the enemy could even react, he got hit with a crushing blow, and the monster burst into flames and burned out in seconds. He couldn't believe it. Like a flame leaping to life, a blazing blade struck his hands, and Lydia burst out yelling that he was amazing, asking if he was weird while demanding what had happened, and Leon snapped back that he'd learned magic. Leon let out a confident shout. He swore he never raised his level to learn magic, and he knew it for a fact. She couldn't believe it actually happened. She'd only heard rumors it was possible, so when Leon said, "I just tried it," the guy finally chilled out and swung up that blazing, flaming blade. Leon finally worked, Lydia burst out in pure joy, yelling, "It's cool, super cool, he's just amazing." Then the girl shot back, asking what could happen with the earth attribute. Leon gritted his teeth and said he'd try. Tragically, their power collided. Water blade and wind blade fused into a single unstoppable surge. Then it tore down the corridor without slowing, plunging straight into the depths. With a grin, Leon admitted it. He'd picked up new magic again. But then he hesitated and said, "No, it looks like a storm blade, but I still haven't learned it." Leon blurted out, all fired up, "So I can learn it only if I fight, right?" Lydia screamed with pure excitement. "Then we're speeding up, let's hunt down those enemies." He roared and smashed the monster with a water blade and a wind blade, then unleashed the blade of the storm like he'd mastered the sky itself. After that, he stormed the next enemy and cut him down with a water and earth blade, proving he'd fully mastered the water blade too. Leon realized he couldn't stop there. He had to push harder to truly master them. So what happens when he fuses them? He straps on both the storm blade and the water blade. He moved like lightning and smashed the monster before it even had a chance to react. Leon stared him down, making sure nothing was off, because yeah, he'd fully mastered the Thunderblade. He couldn't wrap his head around it. Somehow he can learn magic without leveling up at all. And the guy says that's something only the sage gets, because the sage's rule has power so massive it's basically impossible to measure. "You can't cook up magic that never existed," Leon shot back. Then admitted he'd tried plenty, and yeah, it looks that way when you're using attacking magic, but he's got something he desperately wants to test. Monsters spotted a pair, and Leon yelled, "I'm hitting first." Then he handed her the rest like it was destiny. She nodded, "Got it." And the guy realized up to now he'd only been stacking spells one piece at a time, 3 single-part attributes. That's why thunder carries earth, water, and wind, why the flame answers to fire and wind too. So he unleashed the thunder blade and the flame blade. Leon stared at the 4 elements and wondered what would happen if he fused them all. Then his eyes locked on the blades, and he thought he'd messed up. Right when panic hit, the magic crashed into the monsters, and boom, an earth-shaking explosion tore the air apart. He hunted those monsters down and found nobody, so he practically burst with excitement, certain it had worked. "I've done it," he said, grinning hard as he revealed his newest magic, the explosive blade he'd just unleashed. Leon pulled at the monster's material and asked the sage what class she was, because it sounded weirdly specific. Then Leon admitted she had no idea what caused that explosion, and the girl shot back that she'd never heard of anything like it. She swore she only knew one thing about alchemists. Yes, they can make explosives, but they're forbidden to use them unless a miner is involved, and even then it's only inside the mine. As for towers, she'd never even heard of explosives being tied to attributes there. For now, they've got to keep it locked down, pure secrecy. Lydia grinned and said they've only got more and more secrets piling up, and he replied that whatever it was, he'd throw himself into it and try every last thing that could possibly be tried. That girl just stumbled onto a brand new crew of monsters, and Leon, who used to master the explosive arrow, suddenly tore into them, wrecking the first one fast, then blasting through the next, and after that. He mastered the explosive bullet too. Even the arrow and bullet skills, they're just background noise. Thunder and flame can't even trigger a real explosion. Lydia looked at him like, "Of course this is insanely powerful, but how much mana does it burn?" 3 explosive arrows is all he gets for one fight, 2 explosive bullets for the next, and that explosive blade only fires once. Plus, if he's stuck in red mage mode, even those arrows only last for a single shot. Then you've got to check it out. Leon was convinced this is how they kept the momentum going. Once the raid wrapped, Lydia shot up to level 48, Leon crawled to level 6, and he finally learned the curse of weakening the body spell. Lydia pushed toward the guild, and the employee hung her head, apologizing that there was no way to sign up for the upper floor again. Leon stared like nothing had changed, while Lydia snapped, "What's not supposed to be happening?" Even if he pumped his upgrades into the sage class, he'd still stay stuck as a level 20 red mage. Because with a normal intermediate class and that kind of leveling speed, anyone could crank it up to level 50. But Lydia isn't built like that. Her special class barely limped up to level 48. Lydia was sure they'd hit the tower's top level any minute, especially since Leon said if he picked a higher class, they'd upgrade her straight to level 50, and Lydia just wanted to know one thing. Could she really keep up with him? Leon shot back with confidence that everything would be fine, then paused like he had a plan. He figured they should rest first, since it's been 2 whole days since their last meeting. And with that, he stopped and muttered that he could have sworn Leon was around here somewhere. He said this very spot is the Lily Garden, then he rushed to the gate trying to ask a question. only to get sent away, and Leon snapped back that he wasn't here for fun. He had business with them. Two swords jabbed toward him, and the girl shrieked that vile men like him didn't belong here, while her friend barked, "Get out right now!" Leon froze, stunned at what was happening. So this is the Lily Garden's heart. No dirty men allowed. Leon's voice cracked as he awkwardly asked, "Are you sure men aren't allowed in here?" Leon suddenly shouted, "Yes, of course it's forbidden." And the guys jabbed the poor target with spears again. Then Leon's eyes lit up as he blurted, "I wanna call Rita, just that." Leon shrieked in pure terror, screaming that she could not cut him down. Because everyone warned it was forbidden to call the head by his first name, and this arrogant guy had to stand perfectly still. His cat-like ears blared a warning, screaming at him to turn and get out, because if he didn't, she'd drive something into his spear. He stared at her, stunned. "Just stop, tell them Leon's here, and he's sure she'll get it." The girl shot back that he was a total scoundrel. Then, like a spark catching, she blurted out excitedly, "So what did you say?" Carol's sharp ears perked up and she demanded what he'd just told Leon. Then the awkward guy blurted, "Yeah." And when she asked if he was really an adventurer, Leon shot back with full confidence, "I am." She asked tensely if he might be a red magician too, and he awkwardly admitted, "Yeah, I am." The girls immediately dropped to their knees, screaming they needed forgiveness because they were truly painfully sorry. She screeched that the red magician Leon had just saved the leader's life, then snapped her sword up at him. Because she's convinced he deserves the most brutal death imaginable, and all she can spit out after that is a trembling, "I'm so sorry." Years yanked them in and screamed that she'd said the most awful things about Mr. Leon, saying she wanted to stab him, like that was how far she'd stooped. They wouldn't fight him, not even if he caught them out on the street, like he could do whatever he wanted. Leon blurted in shock, "Why are you all so turned on?" With her friends, she snapped, annoyed at the noise blaring in broad daylight. Then Leon whipped his head around and yelled, grinning that Rita was finally here, and the girl just smiled like, "So you came, Leon." Leon shot a glance at the girls guarding the entrance and demanded, "What's happening here?" And the girl just kept screaming that Leon could do whatever he wanted with them. He drifted through the city streets until a tiny coffee shop caught his eye, pushed the door open, and stepped inside, only to get a warm welcome from a friendly waitress. Leon said he had an appointment here, and the girl with a bright smile waved him in, then asked what he wanted, so Leon answered, "Coffee." She slid the drink over, and Leon took one small sip. She burst out, apologizing for making him wait, but when he pushed back, she just looked wrecked. No matter how badly she wanted to, she couldn't let him into the lily garden. With a smile that said, "It's fine, don't stress." He remembered how the girls had peppered him with a million questions about him and Rita, and he couldn't believe it. He'd never thought he'd be able to stay calm in a place like that. He said the vibe here feels so nice. Then the waitress swooped over and asked what Rita wanted. Rita just said, "As always," then sighed and turned to him, and Leon finally blurted out that he needed help. Then she blurted out that everything was fine, she could help him. So Leon snapped his head toward her, stunned and buzzing, and he fired off, "You're sure?" But she didn't even catch the question he was trying to ask. Rita realized she couldn't refuse Leon's request. So when he grinned that it sounded impossible, she stood tall and promised he wouldn't have asked her if she couldn't do it. And that's why he wants to ask. Rita leaned in, curious, demanding to know what the research was really about. The guy said yes, and Rita practically pushed, asking if he wanted her with him and Lydia too. Then the guy blurted out aloud, "Yes." Leon snapped that he meant every word, shouted like it was obvious, staring the girl straight in the eyes with total confidence. He didn't question his answer for even a second. "There'll be just 3 band members, since they're leaving the 4th behind," when the waitress swooped in with a tray carrying Rita's order. The girl told Leon, "Say one of us has a high rank, then their combat power craters by at least a quarter." Leon answered that the princess was level 48, and the girl nodded like, "Yep, that's it. She nailed it." Then she leaned in and grinned, "If you team up and swing together, your bond will hit top tier even without me. And hey, you already beat the boss, right?" That smile said it all. If she tagged along, he was sure they'd make it through, and when the girl looked lost, she blurted, "You trust me that much?" And he fired back, "Yeah, I'm glad too." She jumped at the chance to help him, even before he finished saying what he wanted, so he could trust her with his life. The girl's cheeks flared red as she blurted, "Wait, I want more." Rita demanded to know why the princess, already level 48, still hadn't switched her class, and Leon swore she hadn't done it yet, promising he'd make the change right after her 50th level. A grin spread across her face like she'd finally chosen to become a hero, and Leon leaned in, asking what grade she'd jumped to. She blinked, then admitted she was on the 40th, kind of. Level 40, Rita went. He probably thinks I picked the wrong level for this shift. And the guy snapped, I don't. Rita burst out laughing, said, everything's fine, and she's convinced of that too. Rita said it because someone had to step up and lead. At first, she even planned to jump her class to 35, with the current leader and the elders feeding her advice. But once she got their guidance, she decided to hold off until level 50. Then one day the old leader got hurt on the way and had to retire. She couldn't take the role, so the elders stepped in and decided the past leader's recommendation mattered more than anything. Rita realized she'd have to step up and carry the weight of leadership, and she shot back. I was told I can handle intermediate roles again, just like before. She chose to do things her way, even though they'd scold her for switching her class without asking. And he remembered Maya's warning that this girl didn't even look like an adventurer. With that guy smiling and she cracking up loud, Leon sat there grinning, then he grabbed his coffee mug and took a sip, right when Rita screamed, "That's for sure." Leon blinked in surprise, then nodded with a grin, "Yeah, that's perfect. It'll be ready tomorrow, and after that they'll crush the rest of the study and be done." As Rita waved goodbye to Leon and headed home, Leon stood there watching her go, stunned by Maya's scream. How bad she wanted to take her sister with her, and exhaustion hit him hard as he let out a weary breath. He stared at that tower on the horizon and figured they'd escape this city soon. Then the guy swaggered through the streets, ducking into shop after shop, grabbing exactly what they needed for the mission. Guild headquarters, an employee slid him a letter and smiled, saying, "Ms. Lydia has a message for you." Lydia had agreed to cooperate with Rita, and the guy just grinned like, "That's it, that easy." He scanned the place but found nothing he needed, and a guild worker shot him a question. Did he want anything else? Leon stammered, "Nope, it's fine," then slipped out, convinced Milliam wasn't there today. Research finally kicked in. Liang figured they'd gotten the okay to take the top floor, so they'd start by tearing through every corner of the 41st, and the guy yelled, "Go for it." Level 6 Sage kicked off a dangerous mission, and with him rode Lydia, a level 48 Knight Princess, along with Rita, the armored level 25 fighter. She charged straight into the swarm of monsters, screaming like she was having the time of her life, then slammed her shield into them with brutal force, cracking her foes so badly they reeled. One hit pure power, and the damage showed immediately. She barreled toward another pack of monsters and sliced them apart with her razor-sharp sword, while Leon slammed his blade into a mighty boss and somehow took him down with scary ease. Lydia's grin hit the moment she rolled out a mithril sword. No way, that was unreal. She leaned in and asked what he liked, and he swore he'd have no equal in strength. Then Lydia snapped back, shouting that they were going to hand out a beating right here. Monsters crumpled under her hammer, and Lydia wore a grin while she fought, her moves so smooth they felt like art, while Leon tore through the enemies fast. Monsters clogged the floor, and Leon figured that's exactly how they climbed to the 45th. Because the first day of the study was finally done, they reached the safe zone on the 45th, pitched a tent, and dug in to eat. So yeah, that smile says it all. Leon's support magic is legit, and the girl looks thrilled, like she definitely hasn't been battling all day. Rita shot back, "Yeah, the sage's regime hits hard," but she shrugged it off. The support magic is doing even more for her. Then Leon chimed in, "Right, he said she's got it and it's working." Fusedly said she understood her. Leon's support magic hit so perfectly, and Rita exploded with a scream. Yeah, that was it. The princess finally got her right down to the bone. And that's the wild part. He said it like it was nothing, and now it all adds up. They're going to sleep for 9 hours, then take turns on duty right by the tent, 3 hours each. To figure out the order, you've got to pick who's taking the top 2. Rita blew the roof off with a scream, insisting she'd be second because she's the highest ranked of the bunch. Maybe Leon would be on duty first, right? The guy said he didn't mind at all, but asked what the real reason was. The girl's cheeks flared as she admitted she wanted to get closer friends with Lydia, and Lydia stared back at her, stunned. Loudly, she's convinced it's a great idea. Then Leon shoots back with a grin, saying he's totally fine and the rest doesn't bother him at all. The guy tells them to get some good rest. She promises they will, and just like that, it's time for them to go. Rita grabbed her bag and climbed in, finding Leon already slumped near the tent. He was drifting off, but she slipped out anyway, mumbling through sleepy eyes that she was grateful to him. Rita shouted that it was her turn, and Leon practically buzzed with excitement, asking if he really needed a sleeping bag. Rita told him to just leave it, and Leon snapped back that he got it. Then she bolted into her sleeping bag and flashed a smile. Leon winced, admitting the chair was still warm. He'd only just been sitting in it. Then the guy swung the so-called 10-door open, said he'd bring the case right over, and she told him it was okay, just go on and rest. He sprinted to the tent and spotted Lydia passed out for ages, so he quietly peeled back the blanket, just for her to jolt awake and shout that it was shift time. He apologized right away, saying he woke her up and was really sorry, and she waved it off, saying everything was totally fine. Leon shot back, asking if it wouldn't be better for her to sleep like that, but she shut him down. She needed rest, and he could either lie down with her or stay away because she didn't want him sleeping next to her. Leon's smile didn't fool her. She looked at him like she was terrified for his safety, and he only reassured her, saying he was okay. Rita tucked them under a blanket, shooed him into bed, and whispered good night, then passed out outside the tent. Rita yawned like a thunderclap the moment she woke up, and Lydia tried to slip out quietly so she wouldn't wake that guy. But she couldn't manage it. Leon sat up and instantly demanded what was wrong. A sweet smile, like she was begging forgiveness, lit her face as she woke him up. Leon blinked and asked what time his shift started, and the girl leaned in, kissed his cheek, then slipped out, while Leon just shrugged and said, "It's fine." Lydia rose up sheepishly, and the moment the girl stopped, she said it, clear as day. Come what may, she'd back him to the end. Leon asked what happened and why she'd snapped so suddenly. She only giggled and said she'd go, then told him to do what his heart wanted, and the girl stepped out of the tent. He tore his mind apart trying to figure out what it all meant. Then Rita slipped into the tent, smiled, and told him he was awake. Leon answered that he was, and that they'd both figured it out at the same time, then asked what he should make her for tea. Rita grinned and said, "Thank you so much." Rita dug into the mugs of tea and sandwiches, grinning that the honey was absolutely perfect for tea. Then she bit a sandwich, licked her fingers, and swore it was heavenly. Leon watched her, thinking he couldn't believe it. With that grin, they settled in like sleep was coming for sure. Then Rita told him, "No worries, we can do it." And as Rita and Leon slid into bed, the guy's excitement spiked so hard he couldn't even think about sleeping. He insists on it, but Rita's image won't leave his mind. Lydia is the only one who's helped him blow off steam lately, so why didn't it work this time? Quietly, the girl asked Leon if she could scoot closer, and Leon spun around, stunned. "What?" She asked what wasn't allowed, and he shot back, laughing, "No, not really, of course you can." Then the girl broke into laughter. "Why?" he blurted out, and the girl smiled and said the tent blocks every sound. He muttered, "Yeah, probably." Then she leaned in, asking if he wanted to hug her, and Leon shrank back with a shy, sheepish no. He heard her say she'd already talked to the princess, and if Leon was willing, it'd be a huge help. So he grabbed onto that and figured that was exactly what Lydia meant. He said it, and Leon swore he could feel Rita's courage pounding through his heartbeat, right into the way he looked at her, while Rita told him, plain and steady, that if he didn't want to. Tightly locked in, he figured the conditions were finally met, the start of the sage's regime. And back then, Rita would get wrecked, then pass out fast. Turns out that's exactly what they do now. Lydia promised him, no matter what hit them, she'd stand right by his side. And even if Rita finally learns about the sage's regime, they'll figure out a way to push past it. She leaned in with a grin and blurted out that she wasn't taking him for herself. He understood. Then she fired off the real truth. Right now, all she could think about was him. Lydia grinned at the guy and said, "Good morning, did you sleep well?" And Leon practically bounced back, "Yeah, good morning, and I definitely slept great," and said it was wonderful. Rita jogged right out to them and started warming up, while the girl with the huge grin yelled that she didn't know why, but somehow she felt totally refreshed. He charged up to the guy and snapped, "What about the sage?" Leon flung his head aside and thought, yeah, he'd somehow managed to hide his crazy new physical upgrades with the body weakness ability he just learned. Clutching the teapot in her hand, Rita grinned as she dashed down to the ground, stared at the food, and yelled it was ridiculously delicious. Everyone else erupted with her, shouting "Bon appetit" together. It all kicked off from the 46th floor. Monsters came charging straight at them. But Lydia swung her sword and cut them down, while Leon fired off magic and Rita smashed them to pieces with her hammer. Leon figured they'd wiped out every last monster on this floor. Then, right at the end of day 2, their whole sweep here finally came to a stop. They figured they'd finally reached the 47th floor's safe zone. Then the truth hit. People were already inside. They yanked the doors open and straight up saw 3 men yelling, "Lady Lydia is here." She guessed they were most likely defense troops, while Rita and Leon stood right behind her, totally baffled, not a clue what was happening or why Lydia even knew them. Leon shot a quick question back, "What kind of defense troops?" Then it clicked and his smile told the whole story. Yep, Lydia's brother. Turns out they report straight to him, period. Lydia burst out asking what they were doing here, and the guys told her they were patrolling, because monster numbers have been climbing fast lately. She thanked them for everything, and it sure sounds like they're not even acting on her brother's orders. That she'd be spending the night here, Lydia snapped that yes, she would. Then they all blurted that after that they'd stand watch. So you can sleep easy, they insisted, and the girl stared in shock, asking like, you mean you'll really do all that? What? She blurted, I'm not, so you don't have to guard me, you can finally rest too. The guy cracked up and said, trust me, it's not hard at all, we can stay awake all night if it's for you. She stared, speechless, not knowing what to say next. Lydia shot Leon an awkward look and asked what he wanted her to do, and he just told her they had to accept their offer. Displeasure hung in the air, and Lydia snapped back louder than anyone wanted, we wish you all a good night. While Leon stammered an awkward, yeah, good night, like he couldn't breathe through the moment. Other guys glared at him like he'd ruined everything, and Leon awkwardly realized, yeah, in a mess like this, sharing the same tent was out of the question. He was already down in his sleeping bag right by the entrance. On the third day, Lydia let out a brutal scream, and Rita matched it instantly. Liam stared at them, grinning in disbelief, thinking, these two are way more bloodthirsty than usual. On the 49th floor, they found a safe patch of space, laid down a blanket and spread out food. Lydia, Rita, and Leon dug in and sipped tea in total silence, all three looking completely lost. Rita went tense, realizing the place was packed, and she stared straight at the guy. Meanwhile, Leon looked painfully awkward, staring at the mug in his hand before finally taking a sip. Lee and Leon clung together in the same bed, and then Leon shot Rita a look, asking her to stay out of it if she didn't want things to go any further, while Rita's cheeks instantly flamed with a guilty blush. Rita beamed and blurted out that she was beyond grateful to Leon and the princess, and she even said she'd love for her to stay with them too. She stared up at the ceiling, shook her head, and swore she could. Leon snapped back, that's just how it is. Then the truth hit, tomorrow would be their last day. She swallowed hard and said, yeah, probably. And the very next day arrived. He headed toward the top floor, and with Lydia leveling up hard since the last try, our bond hit a whole new level, so even the boss didn't stand a chance against them. Leon stared at the guild doors, heart racing. Then an employee leaned in and told him, Mr. Leon and Ms. Lydia have been granted access to the top floor. Rita grinned and asked if this was finally what he wanted. Leon nodded, yes, thank you so much. And the moment he said it, she smiled back like, thank you, really. She lit up, grateful it was enough just to thank her, and she was genuinely having fun too. She then wished Leon and the princess the best, held her hands out, and the couple shook them like, we've got this. It was great until they partied straight through the night. Then a brand new morning hit, and Leon told Lydia she had to win the hero title and finally escape this city, because her brother was the one pushing those demands on her. Leon, trying to prove that the two of them had finally smashed the royal tower, flopped onto his bed and grinned. We made it at last. Now I've got to get real rest before the deciding day. A knock slammed at the door. Leon shot up from his bed and yelled, I'm on my way. Then he threw the door open and saw the dark-haired girl he knew standing right there. Leon's face lit up with a good afternoon smile. Then he froze in pure shock, blurted out Amelia's name, and couldn't even breathe. I didn't think I'd ever see you here. What are you doing? Leon, smile on your face. Then he blurted, Amelia. Like he'd just found a miracle, even though he was sure he'd only ever seen her in the lava, so her familiar face hadn't clicked yet. She showed up in casual clothes, and it was a breath of fresh air. Then he blurted, what are you doing here? And how are you holding up? She said Gil, the guild's head, told her to come, and that his real name was Gilbert, and yeah, that totally threw him for a loop. Leon flashed a grin and waved her through, and Amelia breathed out a grateful thanks before she practically buzzed, asking what he'd do today, only for the guy to shrug and admit he hadn't planned a thing. Emily leaned in, hopeful, and asked if they could hit the shops together. Then they stepped into the city and started weaving down the streets, past a whole crowd of mimes, like the world was putting on a silent show. She grabbed the guy by the hand and hauled him to the shops, and they ducked into a china store. Right then, the girl lifted a plate and started showing it to Leon, who leaned in and watched with real interest. Come on, this is the first time he's ever gone shopping with someone like her. And the second he looked at her, his mind started racing, trying to figure out exactly how to ask the question. A girl tried on hat after hat, and when Leon saw it, his cheeks lit up, like this had to be a date, and yeah, he guessed right. They've been doing business together for ages, but he's still buzzing with excitement. Lee's apartment, and the girl grinned, telling him he was welcome, like she'd start talking the second he stepped in, but Lee said it was fine to let him sit for now. He spun his gaze around the girl's apartment, baffled. This was Emily's place, right? Everything felt oddly quiet and cozy, while the girl cooked away in the background, hiding it from the guy. A steaming bowl sat right in front of him, and she told him to taste it, Leon snatched the plate, muttered thanks for the food, took one bite, and instantly froze. He devoured the soup in seconds, yelling that it was insanely delicious. Emily blurted that she'd made way too much, so he should dig in and not feel awkward. He swore he'd go back for seconds, and she shot back. Then refill, right now. What? He slammed the plate down and cheered like it was a dream feast, savoring every bite. Then patted his belly and grinned, because Emily's cooking absolutely blew him away. She held it up in her hands, beaming and whispering, "Thank you." Leon said, "I've got you, let me help." Emily waved it off, saying, "Don't stress, you're my guest." Then she leaned in and asked, "Want some coffee?" Leon grinned and said, "Yeah, I'd love that." Emily burst out, half laughing at how insanely delicious the food tasted, like the chef had magic in his hands. Then she shot Leon a smile and said she could make a living off it, and Leon blinked, stunned, and asked what she meant. Leon got hit with a tray. She smiled like nothing happened and told him she'd just quit her job. Leon screamed in shock, and the moment he heard her, he understood exactly why. She leaned over the table and blurted out that she'd been wrestling with this for ages, because in just a few years she'd be turning 30, and she figured it was about time. Leon shrugged and said, "That's just how it goes." And the way he said it made it sound like he thought she was way older than him. Emily leaned in and told me she loves cooking, and yep, I even worked at a coffee shop when I was younger because she'd always dreamed of becoming a restaurant hostess someday. She knew everything had changed, because now she was right there in that job, and as soon as the days passed, the memory hit her again. She de-saved up every last bit of money. Leon just said, "Yeah, it's clear." She found a few workarounds, then, boom, she finally cracked it and turned her dream into reality, realizing it all at once. The moment she spoke, her face went calm and bright with pure joy. Even though most of her peers could only dream, Leon had to wonder about the rumors, because some folks acted like she cheated just to get ahead. Then he finally pressed her. "So when are you opening that restaurant in the city?" He lowered his head and sighed that it simply wouldn't work here, because if she opened a store, folks might assume it was some kind of special place, just like that. Leon shot up and yelled that it wasn't true, then sank back down with a heavy, sad sigh. Emily admitted she'd been dreaming about moving to a city where nobody knows her, then opening a tiny cafe. Sure, landing clients won't be easy at first, but she's going to push, grind, and make it work. She stared at him, then blurted out that maybe her cooking could put real smiles on people's faces. And she couldn't stop herself, asking if it wasn't amazing. He clutched his hands together and thought, Amelia's really walking away, going after her dream, and he just wanted to brighten her mood. Then the girl looked up and demanded, "So what's wrong?" Why she didn't roll with them. Because if they beat the tower in the next campaign, they'll finally escape the city, and if she hasn't picked a spot yet, she can still join them. The girl erupted into giggles and asked why he'd say something like that, acting so childish. Then he apologized, but she just needed a minute, before her laughter shattered into tears. Leon and Emily sat at the table, mugs of tea in hand, and when Emily finally asked what he remembered from their very first meeting, Leon's eyes sharpened as he told her. He'd never forget it. She reportedly said it got so hard for her to hug anyone else, and she has no clue why, but it might be because she can't stand the idea of being without him anymore, so that's why she quit her job. In some far-off city, she decides it's time to start fresh in a place he can't reach, somewhere totally unfamiliar. And if she can just outlast the memories, she might finally move on, so she begs him to end it all on a sweet, peaceful note. She cried and screamed at the top of her lungs. Then Leon just knew she had to stop acting like she had to ask him because it was obvious. And that tiny sting in his chest. It wasn't nothing. She was begging to forget more than just the city. She desperately wanted to wipe that night from her mind. But it still haunts her as something she can't ignore, and Leon promises he'll replay it over and over as many times as it takes. He pointed straight at her and barked that he wanted her to come with them, and the girl lit up, saying Leon was finally offering something like that. He's acting casual with us, and that's not how he means it. If he was lying, he should have just said, "Come with me," because he gets exactly what she's saying. Emily grinned and told him she figured it was just his style anyway. Then Leon shot back, "I'm sorry," and the girl immediately asked, "So I can really go with you?" Leon lifted his chin and confidently barked, "Of course." Emily said Leon himself promised to come with us, and Leon just awkwardly nodded like, "Yeah, I guess," then hesitated, because he still needed to ask for your permission first. He blurted out that Leon was being careless, and Leon couldn't shake it. Then boom, a new day arrived, and he and Lydia rushed up to the top floor. Lydia clung to him with all her might, and the guy snapped. Conditions were finally met. The sage's time had begun, and with a grin he blurted that they were going now. Lydia screamed back that it was finally over. They'd square up against the boss, Two of them against the world, and they're more fearless than ever, because Leon is cashing in on every upgrade to his magic power, sharpened senses, raw strength, and ironclad defense. Monsters, Leon swore they'd tap the sage's power anytime they wanted, and the moment he decided, he swung an explosive blade. Then it detonated with a brutal blast, hurling injuries into the monsters. So Leon snapped his arm out and roared that he was calling down a thunder bullet. Leon unleashed his magic and carved into the monsters, and the enemy screamed that Leon's power had finally trapped them. Then Lydia swooped in and struck the monster from behind. The girl slammed the monster with overwhelming force, split it clean in two, and crushed the enemy for good. Then Lydia beamed at Leon, smiling back like she'd just won the whole world. They both dove into the teleport portal, and boom, they landed right beside the guild, where Leon grinned and said they'd finally be able to say goodbye to this city, and the girl smiled back like, "Yeah, definitely." They asked when they'd leave, and Lydia just grinned and told them to give it some serious thought, because she'd need at least a couple days of prep before they could even meet. Lydia nodded like it finally clicked. Then Leon leaned in and said, "I've got something to ask you." Lydia perked up. "What is it?" Leon replied, "When we leave, I'm taking you with me." Right then, Lydia froze mid-step and demanded, "Wait, what's going on here?" Lydia noticed it too. So many people were either staring straight at them or pretending not to, and Lydia asked Leon if he didn't think they were looking at them. Leon just said, "Yeah, I do," and screamed that Lydia had finally arrived. The girl snapped back that Ryan's brother was the one here. Then the guy grabbed their shoulders and swore they were back safe and unharmed. Lydia bragged, "We've got the right to take the top floor." Then she fired back, proud as punch, "What do you think we're doing? Yes, this royal tower is fully ours, just the two of us in comparable will." They're staring in shock at what they captured together. Because this is insane, they can't wrap their heads around it. And man, that princess is drop-dead gorgeous, plus somehow she's stronger than anyone expected. Then they said it like this. The red magician finally snagged a partner after the wolf fangs. Swords did their part. Everything was handled for him, like he'd been handed a golden break, and Leon figured that's just how it always went. No matter how insanely strong the Night Princess is, beating that tower alone is impossible. That's what he was warned. So the red magician jumped in with real backup and fought alongside them, because they needed to make friends. He said, "Just think they did it." Lydia shot the crowd a furious look and warned, "The guild's atmosphere is tense, something's definitely going down." "Yep," he replied, "I did." "Say what really happened. He's been waiting right here for them, so tell it straight first." And Leon shot back, "I'm fine." The employee grinned and said they'd nailed it. Then she confirmed everything was back through the upper floor teleporter. Full completion, no doubt. And Leon's rank, along with the team's rank, stayed exactly the same. Starting today, Ms. Lydia got bumped up to rank B, and the girl practically burst with joy. Then Leon shot back, saying he was congratulating me instead. They both froze and shot awkward glances at the crowd, and the girl said something else. She then blurted out that she had an appointment for their team, truly the incomparable crew, and Leon shot back, stunned, asking what the request was and what kind of request this even was. Leon demanded they let him attend the duel as an observer, and the couple screamed in shock, "A duel." Leon shot back, "Whose duel is this?" Then the employee snapped back and reread the request. The duel between Mrs. Rita and Mrs. Maya burst like blooming flowers, and Leon snapped in shock. What on earth were Rita and Maya doing? Right then, Lydia practically exploded with excitement, demanding, "Wait, what's happening?" Leon burst into the restaurant, and the bartender snapped that a duel was coming, fight to crown the new leader, and it had been ages since it last happened. The guy shot back, "I heard that news fast." The whole city was buzzing, and everyone turned to that group talking about Maya and Rita's duel. Leon just stood there, looking painfully awkward, and blurted, "It sure looks like it." He lifted the spoon to his mouth, and out of nowhere, the conversation from yesterday came crashing back. An employee from the guild saying it would happen tomorrow afternoon, and Leon's shock hit like lightning. Leon realized it'll happen on the tower's first floor, and he genuinely thought it was just going to be a duel between Rita and Maya, because he never imagined he'd witness this. Maya threw down a challenge to Rita, and Ryan snapped back, "This is bigger than you think." The Lily Garden's next head could be decided, so Lydia couldn't help but blurt, "Why would you even jump in?" "Of course, this is all for my little sister." She blinked in shock and asked, "What is all this for me?" And he just smirked, saying she probably already knows. That the leader of the Lily Garden girls would stand right at the top of the flowers. If Rita, the toughest adventurer who infiltrated Queen's Tower, could ever bring herself to step down. Her sister blurted that she could join in, so for Leon, that was all he needed. He awkwardly admitted that Mr. Ryan was crazy protective. What if they just refused to be witnesses? What then? Ryan shot back that he could handle it himself, and it stayed as the backup plan if they didn't crawl back before the duel kicked off. The bartender leaned in and told him, "I never thought you'd end up as a witness with all this chaos from the manager swap." He downed his drink, leaned in, and demanded if they weren't fighting for him. Then the guy blurted out, all fired up, that no, it wasn't like that at all, and Leon immediately slammed the whole glass. Fighting between adventurers was a hard no inside the guild. So even the most hot-blooded troublemakers couldn't start riots, because not every clash can be settled peacefully, and that's exactly why duels exist. They stood right in front of the tower entrance, still pushing their logic, convinced this was happening in the first-floor hall, run by the guild, and for two solid reasons. First came the adventurers' own skills and techniques, and class blessings were supposed to work just as well. Then out of nowhere, someone yelled, "Good morning." Lee, her brother, and a third man stood there, and Leon flashed a grin and said, "Good morning." Then Ryan jabbed a thumb at the stranger and explained, "He's coming with us today. He's a priest from our army." Leon stared at that smile, like it could seal any wound the moment it happened, as long as they were still alive, and he convinced himself it would be fixed on the spot in the tower, then awkwardly called out to Ryan. When they pressed Ryan about what the witnesses were doing, he snapped that the guild master would run the duel, and they'd better obey every order. Then he threw it down. They're fully geared, ready to fight, now they're going. Leon spotted Maya across the arena, her eyes blazing with pure determination as she fussed with her outfit, lacing up her gear and slipping on her gloves like she was about to explode into battle. He stood before the girl with a grin, like the duel couldn't touch him. She wasn't nervous one bit. The crowd erupted with shouts, throwing all their support behind their fighter. He read the instructions, and the girl met his eyes with a bright smile. Then her heavy sigh gave her away, but she still swallowed the panic and tried to act like everything was totally fine. The crowd finally erupts because it's clear the witness has arrived, loud and unmistakable. They can read it. The winner will be whoever's left standing when the other side quits or can't keep fighting. And if Maya wins, Rita immediately steps down as head of the Lilligarden and hands it to her. Rita wore a smile that promised she'd shut down the wish if she won, and he leaned in and asked what everyone was happy with. Maya answered with clenched tension that she was, while Rita flashed her grin like, "Obviously." The staff at Leon took one look and said that. Then, on the witnesses' orders, a duel would kick off for real. The guy gulped air, shot his hand up high, and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Get ready." Leon stared in silence for a couple of minutes, then blasted a loud command, "Go," and slammed his hand down hard as everyone tightened their grip and struck their fighting stances. The ground tore under his feet as he sprinted straight at Maya, lightning fast and unstoppable. Even that massive shield couldn't slow her down, and when she slammed the hammer, she drove it in with everything she had. Rita stared at her in pure shock as the crowd erupted in screams, hanging on the next move. Then she whipped her gaze to where Maya used to stand and found nothing. Rita felt someone creep up behind her, then a dagger jutted toward her back. The rustle gave her the second she needed, and she snapped around fast, slamming up her shield to defend herself. Rita swung the hammer, but the girl juked out of the way at the last second. Now it was Maya's turn to hit. Rita threw up a shield to block her, while Ryan stared at the clash and demanded, "Do you two understand exactly what's going on?" As long as they were still breathing, any wound could be mended, but the moment someone died, it was over. Magic couldn't touch that level. Lydia and Ryan wore sheer terror on their faces, and the guy could barely believe how obvious it all was. Rita's warhammer swings and Maya's punches to the neck were deadly, because this wasn't a fight for fun anymore, it was a straight-up battle to the death. They struck the girl from every angle, but Rita couldn't read where she'd land next, because the girl kept unleashing that rapid mix ability, snapping her into a new spot before Rita could catch her. So she could fight back at the very last second, and the moment Maya landed her hits, she slipped away again and again, grinning like, "Yeah, I'm just quirky." He said that assassin girl is crazy good. Now it looks like the great Rita is in full trouble, because she's an absolute beast at surviving a non-stop barrage, and he's stunned by how lightning fast she moves even in that armor. The girl gritted her teeth with rage, but she didn't slow down. A nasty scratch marred her cheek, yet it was far from fatal. Maya finally said what we were all thinking, "Rita's incredible." Leon just smirked and replied, "Yeah, thanks to Rita's blessing for the armed warrior, even her skin's armored like chainmail, so you'd better bring an insane attack if you want to cut her till she bleeds." She slammed on the brakes and panted hard, sweating buckets from those feral moves. Rita stared her down like a hawk, but still hadn't made her move. Rita's guard won't budge, So Maya barrels through with crushing punches, mixing skills at once to finally crack the defense and burn through Rita's stamina fast. She crumpled in failure, then shoved her panic aside and marched straight for Rita. While Lydia screamed toward the air, warning that Mrs. Maya was vanishing, and Leon exploded back, shouting, "No, this isn't happening." It sat on the right. Rita froze for a split second at the welcome, then snapped into action, whipping around fast and swinging a hammer to block, but Maya slammed in again and again. Rita burst out, yelling that she'd vanished again. Lydia's eyes snapped onto the girls as Rita went for another strike, only for the girl to dodge it once more. She snapped that she still wouldn't stop, stared at her own body, and shouted that even if she racked it with scratches, it still wouldn't break her or make her lose. Rita stared them down, and the whole room held its breath. Then she snapped to attention the moment she caught Maya's footsteps, spun around, and shrieked, "Get it!" before smashing her with a hammer, sending Maya's scream tearing through the air. The girl zipped across and slammed onto the ground. Maya's friend shrieked that she'd been hurt. Rita and Leon stared in shock. Maya pushed herself up, breathing out hard and tired. Her chest heaved and she coughed hard. Her friend tried to rush in, but someone yanked her back. The girl screamed at the top of her lungs, begging them to let her reach Maya because Maya would help her. The tension kept climbing by the second, and it finally felt like time to call the winner. Leon blurted out, all fired up, that it was perfect, and Maya hissed, "Stop, don't say that." She snapped that she could still fight, and Ryan screamed at the top of his lungs for her not to be so reckless, because if she keeps going, she'll just end up dead. Maya gripped her hammer and stared straight at her target, unmoving, until she snatched her dagger, but her hands were trembling so hard she could barely swing it. She slammed the shield to the ground and grinned, calling herself a stupid girl, then started marching toward Maya, who stared back, locked in tight and unblinking. They stared at it, freaking out, totally clueless about what was happening. Maya screamed for her to back off, and Rita yanked her in, wrapping her arms tight as she hugged her hard to keep her safe. Maya snapped, fuming, and jabbed her dagger at Rita, then Rita asked if she really wanted her gone that badly. Maya stared, and the next second, the tears just poured out of her. She kept crying harder and louder, screaming that she was so sorry. Then Maya let her dagger clatter to the ground. At last, the fight was over, and somehow everyone was still alive. She snapped that if she'd apologized the second she messed up, none of this would have spiraled, and Maya exploded, screaming that her sister could have still become a hero if it wasn't for her. Rita slapped her hands on her shoulders and demanded, "Who told you to dream of being a hero?" Maya shot back that if they were stronger, they could steer the blooming flowers themselves, and then she'd run off on an adventure with Leon. Rita walked up to the guy and fired off the question, what did it mean to Leon? It didn't even sound that horrible. She flashed a smile, and the guy flinched like she'd caught him off guard. Then Rita snapped her focus back to Maya. She grinned and promised she'd stay with them, because her heart was set on the truth, the lily garden, the blooming flowers, and when that pulled at everyone, their team leaned in closer. Rita wanted to stay here forever, and she wrapped her arms around her and screamed she was begging for forgiveness. Like she didn't know Rita was never asking to be forgiven in the first place, and they didn't even stop to think about it. Leon glanced at the beaming Lydia and broke into a grin, then shot his hand up and roared that the fight was over. Rita had won. Rita burst up to her and blurted that she was battered and bruised, and the girl even said it must hurt like crazy. Then she screamed that the leader was way too cruel, but Rita snapped back that holding back would be downright rude to Maya. Maya's wounds were so serious that he snapped at the doctor to stop standing there. "I'm already coming." And the moment he shouted it, he sprang into action to help the girl, while Lydia watched the team and breathed. What a beautiful sight.